Oh, I don't. It sounds so weird. Hi. Oh my God. I'm so discombobulated. Good morning. Good morning. Holy poopy faces. Where is everybody? Du-du-du-du. Du-du-du-du-du-du-du. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I'm gonna do this now. I know, I'm late. I'm sorry. I'm late. I'm sorry about everything. I'm sorry for whatever I did. Welcome back to the show. Yeah. Welcome back to the show, Lisa. Good morning, Lisa. The earth says hello. Is this like really tinny? My sound is really tinny. Good morning, good morning. Upside down face. I agree. Oh, what's going on? This hair is all up. How was my Easter? I drove back from up north to LA when I was visiting family. And it was actually not a great drive yesterday. Oh, you like the San Jose show? Woo, whoop, whoop, whoop. Me too. That was a lot of fun. Hi, Oomph. How are you doing? Yeah, so it was, it was fine. There was a lot of really strange traffic coming back from the Bay Area to Los Angeles yesterday. It's like a lot of people that don't normally drive that. And yeah, so it was a little hectic. I'm going to be honest. It was not the easiest drive home, but it's fine. Obviously, everybody made it. Nobody died. I'm good, Neil. How are you? Oh my goodness, Lee. I'm so happy to see everybody. I'm so happy to see you. I hope your weekend was good. I hope Pepper. Good morning. I hope your weekend was good. I hope he rose for you. Rise, Jesus. So I guess he did. I guess he rose. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. It's really good to see everyone. I missed you so much. It was a lot. It was a lot. It was a good week. It was a really hard week. I'm really glad we went up to see my family. You got super high. Oh, thank you, Haggard. Thanks for watching, you guys. I really appreciate that. It was really nice of you. Everyone's so nice to Bobo and everything, so that was really nice too. Thank you. Um, but it was a good week. It was, I have a family member who's very ill, and so this week was to spend time and be with them while they're going through this a little bit. And it was really important and really good. Really good. It was, yeah. But the Pope, woo woo. Um, but yeah, it just was a hard week. It's a hard week. It's a hard time. It's part of life. And it's just hard. Um, it was nice to be in San Jose. That's where I was born. So, I mean, dox myself. I was born in San Jose and grew up in the South Bay. And I actually this particular march was in downtown San Jose, and yeah, me too. Was down in San Jose, and it was the same. There's a big park in the middle of San Jose near the city hall and stuff like that, and it was the same park that in the 70s. I recall being at a march with my parents and my siblings in that very park for Cesar Chavez and for farm workers' rights. So it really kind of hit me hard, you know, with my dad and everything, you know, blah, blah. I'm a sentimental old fool, actually. So it was just kind of one of those moments where, you know, like 50 some odd years later, I'm going to the same park for a whole different range of issues. And I don't know, it just felt kind of like a moment for me, just a personal moment, not a big deal. But that was really, that was good. I felt my dad close to me then, which was really nice. I don't know, it was just nice. You know, I don't go home very often at all. I don't think I've been in downtown San Jose for, I don't know, decades, maybe a decade, maybe 2 decades. So I don't, I always go back, but it was nice. It was really nice to go back. And of course, there was a lot of great people there. Oh my gosh, it was just a wonderful gathering. And really great to see all the people out on the street saying no, saying absolutely fuck no. Um, and what strikes me about this time of protesting is everyone is putting like energy into what their message is. You know what I mean? Like all of the signs are really, hi Dean, how are you, darling? All of the signs were like homemade and really creative and really, I really inspiring. There was just like an amazing amount of really great solidarity with everyone. There were young people, old people, white, diverse, you know, like everybody was gathered. So that I think is so powerful. If we can support each other through this and pay attention to the issues that are really hurting some people more than others, right? Um, I think it would. I think we can get through this. So I don't know. I mean, it was a great. For that reason, it was a great Saturday. It was great to see my family. I didn't get to see all of them, but I got to see most of them, and yeah, spent some good time with the person who is ill, which was the intention of that week, and it was good. It was really worth. It was worth all the traffic, all the driving. It's funny because the drive up there was pretty easy, and so I was like, "Oh yeah, piece of pie." Ooh, ooh. And then yesterday I was like, "Oh my god." So, anyways, I'm so glad to be back. I missed you guys so much. Yeah, but what about the Pope? What did he do? Did he diss JD Vance? Did he tell JD Vance to go fuck a couch? Did he? Did he offer him a couch? Go ahead, sir. Fuck it up. No, he didn't. Oh, all right. Well, that's fair. I don't even know what's going on today. I do know I have a shit ton of things to read. He died after he saw him. He did? Wait, shit. No, he did? Did he die? Wait, did I miss something? Did fucking Trump? Did the Pope die? What? Oh my God, he died? Oh, I didn't even know that. Did JD Vance kill him? Wait, did JD Vance kill him? Holy shit, when did this happen? When did he die? Like yesterday? JD had just made the margaritas. Oh God. Oh my God. Vance should not have visited the Pope. He was still recovering. Oh my God. JD Vance killed the Pope. Oh, there's been no allegation that the salt on the rim of the glass was Novichok. Oh my, I'm not laughing because I'm freaking. I'm freaking out a little bit. I didn't know that. I did not know that. Oh, I kind of liked Pope Francis. He was a pretty good pope. Oh my God, I just didn't watch the news, I guess, yesterday. I guess I must have been boop, boop, out of it. THG's, he'll be the next pope. Oh my God, he just gave his Easter speech. Oh my God. Hold on. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm fucking freaked out a little bit, but shit happens. Wow. Like, wow. That's different. There's the scene of the Vatican. Well, wait a minute. So I had heard the Pope had refused to see him and sent an emissary, and then I saw a pic of JD Prance and His Holiness sitting and chatting. Yeah, I saw them chat too. Oh my God. Well, this kind of makes me sad because I think he was a better pope, among popes, which, popes by design are problematic. So, um, wow. Oh, that fucking sucks. Now who are they going to pick? Are they going to pick some fucking Nazi pope? It's going to be like Benedict again or whatever that guy's name was. That was so rude. Wow. Oh, that's a bummer. Well, R.I.P. R.I.P. Pope. R.I.P. God, how embarrassing. Oh, man. So now we're going to get all Pope all the time. Okay. Hold on. La, la, la. I'm just looking. Pope Francis has died. So embarrassed. Oh, my God. I guess I'm a little surprised. I'm a little surprised. Okay, wait. Let me just go out in here and just I suppose nothing's happening today because nothing ever happens on a Monday. All right, so we can read today. But anyway, Pope Francis, R.I.P. Pete Hegseth for Pope. Poop hands is a great idea, Hags. Should I care about the Pope? But I don't. No, Max, you don't have to because you didn't know him, did you? Did you know him? If you didn't know him, you probably don't have to care about him. Just saying. Yeah, I'm just surprised. The Pope turned down the discussion. He just let JD Vance say hi after the 20-minute scolding about immigrants the Vatican gave Vance. Excellent, Jane. Excellent. Of course, Vance will lie about that, but whatever. Then agreed to a brief greeting on Easter. JD looked and sounded like a dingbat. I'll pray for your health. Oh, yeah, good job, JD. You fucking killed him. Oh my God. You freaking killed the Pope. Now how do you feel? You're the last people to see the Pope alive. What the fuck? What was in that handshake? What was in that moon pie you brought him from Ohio? No, I don't know what does Ohio do? What does Ohio produce? JD Vance. Oh my God. Coffee's good. That's so weird. Oh my God. It's like conclave. You guys. It could be conclave. Oh my God. What if it's conclave? I think that if you haven't seen that movie yet, you need to watch that movie. It's actually really good. And I actually think this is the perfect time to watch it now that the Pope is dead. R.I.P. To fail. Oh, Holy Father, I'll pray for your health to fail. Yeah, Shady Vance only became Catholic in 2019 when he had to for political purposes. Money, money, money. It's so funny. It's a rich man's world. Yeah, wow. That's really fucked up. Oh well, Hey man, to die on Easter though as a pope, that's got to be worth something, right? Like if you die as a pope and you've like worked that motherfucker, he had to work that day and then die? That's bullshit. I think that's bullshit. I wonder, man, he must have been really sick. He looked better than I thought. Oh. Well, thank you for breaking that news for me, everybody, because I did not know. I had not paid attention. I must have been watching some other video about birds or something because I didn't Didn't know that the Pope himself had the opposite of risen. Yeah, Easter. Oh, is Easter Monday? Oh, today's Easter too? Oh, shit. Well, there you go. Do people have the day off today? Is it a day off? I don't even know. Maybe Stephen Miller is going to send him a letter like he did to Harvard for the diocese. Yeah, Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller, the expert on nothing. You know? Like, he's like the expert on nothing. You have chocolate eggs to eat, Neil? That's great. I don't have any. I don't want any chocolate eggs to eat, actually, so it's okay. It's all right. I don't need them. Let's see. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, I love you, Val. Let me pull up my little bookmarks. I've been putting so much stuff in here. Oh, I got to pull up my email too because I sent myself a lot of articles. Oh, do 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 do. La 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 la. Carrie, hello, darling. How are you, Carrie? Good to see you. School kids in Michigan have the day off. Interesting. Let's see. Well, Timothy Snyder has a piece on the Pope. What did I send myself? Yeah. Oh, hello. Why can't I open? Why can't I open my mail? Why? La 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 la. All right, here we go. He left or is leaving the U.S. Oh, that's right. Yes, Jane. Him and Marcy Shore went to Canada, I believe, or to Toronto. I'm not sure. I'm sure. I know. Can you imagine the palace intrigue that's happening behind the scenes now that the Pope has died? Oh my Lord, that's going to be crazy. Oh, good. I'm glad. Sorry, I had to light my joint again. Okay, here we go. I have a bunch of. Oh, this was interesting. The Politico article on the Defense Departamente. La 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 la. Mm-hmm. Cute. And then what's this? He's advised. Oh, there's a Mother Jones article I want to read to you. Read to me. Read to me, Lolo. Then I have the story about dumpy boy Hegseth. Just can't keep it in his pants, can he? Hi, Teresa. Hi, Teresa. It's good to see you. Yeah, he can't keep it in his pants. He's got to send a signal every time he needs to say something. What am I doing? Oh, this is what I'm doing. La la la. Sorry, just lining things up so that we can go ahead and read them. Mama. Ooh, here we go. And then I have a piece on Justice Alito's dissent, which I haven't read yet. Thank you, for sharing that because I was able to pick it up off of your feed, which was cool. Ah, all right. All righty. Let's move this over here. Well, no, I don't need it back. I don't need it big. Oh, I guess I do need it over here. Sorry, everybody. Okay. La 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 la, and I say it's all right. Well, if you don't smoke them, they go out. Let's see. Okay, whoop whoop. Pepper. Today's the early Red Sox game. Yes. Oh, the Red Sox are playing. I do like baseball. Baseball's fun. Someone who predicted the Pope dies first and Trump shortly thereafter predicts the next Pope is either from an African nation or Asian. Jane, that's fantastic. See, this is it. Maybe it's all taken down. Maybe. Easily, it's good to see you. How are you? Welcome back to the show. Oh, you want to know the coolest thing that happened on Saturday when I was at the march? Someone recognized me from the show. All of a sudden, I heard Lolo, and I'm like, what? And this woman is one of our loungers, lurker. She doesn't say much, but she recognized me and like, what are you doing up here? And it was really great. It made me feel really good. Yay! I'm like, yay! a fan, yay! So it was really cute. It was very cute. It was really sweet. Anyway, let's hope his second prediction happens fast. Yeah, what about that one? Why don't those things ever happen, right? Like all the good things happen, or the stupid stuff happens really fast. Jane, Timothy Snyder and his wife Marcy Shore, who's the other historian, are going to the University of Toronto. Ooh, that's what I thought I heard. That's great. Yeah. Hi, Black Bear. How are you? It's so nice to see you, friend. Yeah, bro. Star power. Well, maybe not star power, but that's okay. Yeah, maybe not star power, but that's cool. That's all right. That's all right. It was just fun. It was such a fun day. I love being in that suit. I have to tell you, that's so much fun to me. I can't even tell you. It just makes me want to go out and out and out and out. So good. So all good stuff. Yeah, but we have a lot of shit. We have a lot of shit to cover. We have a lot of shit. My nephew in London says he saw you on Rogan. He remembered the dino on Joe Rogan, which means he also watched Joe Rogan. Oh my God. Jane. I know. If that's my one and only credit, I'm going to be pretty upset. Yeah, were you on anything big? Yeah, I was on Joe Rogan. Oh, were you interviewed? No, I wasn't interviewed. He used clips of me and manipulated them. That's so cool. Jason Stanley, Yale professor of political philosophy, is also moving to the University of Toronto. Ooh, the brain drain. Ooh. Ouch. Ouchie McGouchie. This thing will not stay lit. That's terrible. Well, I mean, not for Canada, or students that are international, but still. That's all. You know what? I think those universities kind of got ahead of themselves a little anyway. So, God damn it. Their prize professors could probably go. As long as kids can still access the information. I don't really care where they are. They don't have to be in America. It's kind of dumb. You have to be on this piece of land, except for instead of that piece of land. Oh, okay. Doesn't make any sense to me. But I got to tell him, yes, he did. Rogan did use the dino appearance to lie. I do have that video that shows the difference between Rogan's thing and mine, but you've seen a few recent clips of Rogan commenting against deportations without due process. Really? Wow. Neil, I'll tell you right now, it would be brilliant of Canada to go ahead and invite the best and the brightest to become Canadian. And then hopefully you vote in either Carney or Singh, and then you do have to have that. You have to avoid the Polyev getting into power. Although I don't think Polyev is I don't think he's gutsy, and I don't mean that in a positive way, but I don't think he even has the guts to do the shit that the Trump administration can do. You know what I mean? He's a little bit like a weak copy, like a faded, copy of something. So I don't think Polyev has the political capital or the will of the people really to do what if he was going to try and imitate Trump. That's my personal opinion. So it's not worth anything because I have no idea what Canada is all about. So I'm just guessing. Apologies. All right. I know we should start with Pete Hegseth, but let's not. Let's start with Justice Alito and his delayed descent into hell. I mean, his descent against the opinion. So This is Steve Vladek's thing. I worked for the Holocaust chair, so sometimes I'd converse with Janice Stein, monk school, which you definitely already know. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. France has a recruit climate scientist thing. Oh, that's smart. Polyev has some constitutional loopholes he can use to be a real bastard. Oh, that would make sense, Neil. That would make sense. This thing is just not going to stay lit. Okay, fine. I won't smoke it. Uh, yeah, reverse brain drain. I think it's great. I mean, I don't know. Countries are weird. I'm sorry. I think it's weird. I think that part of what got us into trouble is this is my land. That's your land. That's not your land. We were here first. Like all that stuff. Yeah. Canada usually loses. I would imagine, Jane. I would imagine. Well, Canada, you're the next contestant up on The Price is Right. I really hope. I really hope you. I'm glad you're taking advantage of it. Yeah, more money. Yeah, absolutely. But that doesn't necessarily have to be the way because there's donors donating to U.S. universities, Neil, funding chairs and stuff like that. So I would think that Canadian universities could transfer that donor relationship. You know what I mean? Yeah. Anyway, I mean, probably the better investment right now is in Canadian universities. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. All right. So let's read. Oh, I want to read to you. Yay. I'm back to read to you. And I'm going to start with this, and then we're going to go from there, and then, blah, 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 bric-a-brac. One thing leads to another, and all of a sudden, the Pope's dead. Go figure. Wait, I don't even know how to do this anymore. Ah! There we go. Okay. Justice Alito's misbegotten dissent in AARP. Justice Alito's after-the-fact opinion dissenting from the court's early Saturday morning Alien Enemy Act ruling rests on a revealing array of misrepresentations, misstatements, and non sequiturs. Oh, yay. We don't have huge endowments like Harvard because all our universities are publicly funded. Seems like a good plan. Seems like a good plan. Welcome back. Blah, 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 blah. Every Monday morning. Blah, 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 blah. Let's see. That's just okay. Obviously, the biggest news out of the court last week came very late Friday night, early Saturday morning, when the justices temporarily blocked the Trump administration's ability to use the Alien Enemy Act to remove anyone detained in the Northern District of Texas. I covered the ruling and its implications in detail in my post from Saturday morning. The order from the court, which dropped a little before 1 a.m. Eastern Time on Saturday, noted that a statement from Justice Alito would follow. That opinion came down late Saturday, sometime after 11 p.m. Eastern, in the form of a 5-page dissenting opinion, joined in full by Justice Thomas. As Alito dissents from emergency rulings go, the tone of this one is actually relatively mild. But the substance is something else entirely, and bespeaks a justice who was grasping for ways to justify not granting the relief the applicant sought. Given all of the attention that the court's original ruling has received, it seems only appropriate to also take a closer look at the Alito-Thomas dissent and what it portends for those justices' votes in future emergency applications relating to Trump administration policies. TLDR, nothing good. Too long, didn't read. But first, the news. Let's see. On the docket, the court handed down one opinion in an argued case last week in Cunningham v. Cornell. Justice Sotomayor wrote for what was effectively a unanimous court in clarifying the appropriate pleading standards for certain claims arising under the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, ERISA. Justice Alito wrote a separate concurrence joined by Justices Thomas and Kavanaugh, and that's about all that needs to be said about that. Otherwise, the only real news to come out of the court last week were the two aforementioned orders. First came Thursday's order scheduling a very unusual May 15th oral argument on the Trump administration's emergency applications in the birthright citizenship cases. As I explained in detail when the applications were filed, the government is not asking the justices to hold that Trump's efforts to narrow birthright citizenship is lawful. Rather, it's seeking to narrow the scope of the 3 district court injunctions so that they'd only apply to the named individual plaintiffs. I'm more than a little surprised and disappointed that the court is even holding argument on such a transparent ploy. All the more so since 1, the court passed on 2 better vehicles for deciding this exact question in January, and 2, the government's efforts to manipulate which districts detainees are held in based on where courts have issued TROs in the Alien Enemy Act cases. Are held. How's that sentence? The government's efforts to manipulate which districts detainees are held in based on where courts have issued TROs, in the Alien Enemy Act cases only underscores why nationwide injunctions are important. Perhaps the justices just want to bend over backwards before ruling against Trump. But of the 3 emergency applications on which the full court has heard oral argument since 1971, 2 in 2022 and 1 last year, the applicant prevailed in all 3. Not a great sign here, in my opinion. But then we got the early Saturday morning ruling in AARP, the initialism is a coincidence, which, as I suggested a bit later on Saturday morning, suggests that at least a majority of the justices are tiring of the Trump administration's Calvin ball. For now, the ruling just temporarily blocks the removal under the Alien Enemy Act of anyone who was, is, or will be held in the Northern District of Texas. But even that intervention, coming when and how it did, was a big deal all by itself. Justice Alito published his dissenting opinion, about which more shortly, a little after 11 p.m. on Saturday, bringing to an end a week that had started quietly and turned momentous in a hurry. We don't have huge. Also, our tuition is way less. Total tuition for McGill for a BA or BSc is 5,000 Canadian for a Quebec resident. If you're a foreign student, that might be double. That's nothing. Wow. That's nothing. This week won't even start quietly. It won't. We expect a regular order list at 9:30 this morning, followed by the beginning of the April argument calendar, the last regularly scheduled argument session of the October 2024 term. Tomorrow at 10, we expect 1 or more rulings in cases argued earlier in the term, and the court still has 2 major pending emergency applications to deal with: AARP, where the ACLU's application remains pending, and Wilcox, where the Trump administration's application to let it fire members of the NLRB and MSPB remains pending, to say nothing of the other cases that might make it back to the court this week in a hurry, for example, Abrego Garcia. In case you're wondering, almost none of this is normal. The April argument session is usually when the justices kick into high gear for the home stretch of the term, with all cases argued and with opinions circulating. But the remarkable amount of emergency docket activity over the past 2 weeks is just about unprecedented, as is the extent to which there's no reason to think it's behind us. Ooh, the long read. All right, I'm take a break and have a little smoke and check in with my friends. Ooh. Anyway, I hope everyone had a really good week. I hope you had a good weekend. And if there was chocolate in your weekend, that's a good thing. If you saw family that you wanted to see, or maybe didn't want to see, but you saw them anyway, and you really you may have seen family you didn't want to see, but I hope you didn't. I hope you saw all the family you wanted to see. And I hope that your meals were good and the laughter long. We don't really do Easter. I don't really do Easter. I haven't done Easter since I was a kid. Like my mom, we went to Catholic church. So my mom was, she did her thing. Easter was a big day for, that. But yeah, we didn't really, I don't really do it. I mean, I did baskets for my kid when I was little, when I was little. Young mother. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Sorry. As noted above, late Saturday night, Justice Alito filed a 5-page opinion publicly dissenting from the court's very early Saturday ruling in AARP. Rather than let Alito's opinion or the public commentaries endorsing it go unanswered, I thought it would be useful to analyze the specific arguments he proffers, some of which are just wrong, some of which are non sequiturs, and some of which are truly galling. Hi, Tom! Whoop, whoop. You've been out for 3. Oh, okay. All right. Whatevs. Okay. Go ahead and brag about it. Hi, Tom. It's so good to see you. Easily had all my kids and grandkids over. It was a great Easter. And you had the baby. You had the baby. Oh, babies are fun at Easter. Kids are fun at Easter or any holiday, really. Oh, you watch Dark Money, Ohio on. Oh, hey, listen, you guys, there's 2 new documentaries on HBO. Teresa, that's one of them, right? Dark Money, is that one of them? Because there's two documentaries on HBO that I'd really love for us to watch on Tuesday. I don't know if we can watch both of them, but we could at least watch one of them. Thanks for that reminder, Teresa. I forgot about those. You made an 11-hour brisket, Max? Holy shit. That must have been just so tender. Oh my God. I love a good brisket. When someone does it well, oh yeah. No, that's all about. It's really good. Nice. Nice. I did eat a lot of chocolate, but it was just on my own. There was no bunnies involved. The spiral ham was so good, and hash brown casserole. Yum. Oh my God. That sounds so good. I love brisket, though. Oh my God. How about a beaver documentary? Let's do it, Tom. It practically chewed itself. Well, that's great. How convenient. A roast that chews itself. That sounds really good, Max. That sounds real good. Those sandwiches are going to be insane. Oh my God. Do you have any rye bread? Are you gonna make like a Reuben? I don't know. I guess brisket, you don't really put that on it. I don't know. You could make tacos. You can make tacos. You can make brisket tacos, like a little, like almost birria. Oh boy, that'd be good. Mm-hmm. Yum. Food. I like food. I like food. I like food. All right, here we go, babes. Let's read this bitch. All right, to do so, I go through the 7 bullet points in Alito's dissent in order, with one warning: just about all of Alito's objections rest on technical arguments about the Supreme Court's jurisdiction and various procedural rules. Oh, your nephew, who apparently watched Rogan. Brisket poutine. Oh, man. Oh, brisket sliders tonight with mashed potato pancakes. Holy shit balls. It sounds so good. Oh, wow, wow, wow. I'm going to go buy half off Easter candy. No, I'm just kidding. Had PB&J for dinner yesterday. I was craving a honey baked turkey breast, but no money. Oh, no, Tom. Oh, my God. You had PB&J? Dude. Oh, my Lord. Oh boy, brisket poutine. I'm telling you, nice crispy fries. Oh my God, stop it, stop it. Okay, here we go. Sorry. I'll do my best to make what follows accessible, but there's a bit more legalese in what's coming than I usually prefer. And although it should be obvious, I'm not quoting each of the bullet points in full. Rather, I'm quoting them to the extent necessary to identify the claim advanced therein. Bullet number 1, yeah. Ooh, Texas strawberry preserves. Yum. Yum, yum. Bullet 1, it is not clear that the court had jurisdiction. This claim is almost specious. The Supreme Court's power to review cases from the lower federal courts is remarkably capacious. Unlike appeals from state courts, where the court can review only final rulings, there's no similar restriction on its power to hear appeals from lower federal courts. Instead, 28 U.S. Code authorizes review by certiorari as soon as a case is in a court of appeals, including before or after rendition of a judgment. Oh, hi. Hi, Sam. Hi, Sammy. Judgment or decree. And the court has held that a case is in a court of appeals as soon as it is properly docketed therein, that is, just about as soon as it gets there. There's no question that the ACLU's appeal was in the Fifth Circuit when the Supreme Court ruled early Saturday morning. I lost my place. Thus, as a matter of statute, the court's appellate jurisdiction was satisfied. Alito tries to argue that the district court's denial of the ACLU's request for a temporary restraining order could not be immediately appealed, and therefore the ACLU's appeal wasn't in the Court of Appeals. There are at least two independently fatal problems with this assertion. First, a case is in a Court of Appeals for purposes of the Supreme Court's appellate jurisdiction, even if the Court of Appeals ultimately holds that it doesn't have jurisdiction. That's because the Supreme Court's power to hear an appeal does not turn on whether the Court of Appeals properly had jurisdiction under the separate jurisdictional statutes for those tribunals. Were it otherwise, the Supreme Court would never be able to review decisions by courts of appeals holding, even incorrectly, that they lack appellate jurisdiction. Thus, it seems quite clear that the court did have and does have jurisdiction to grant the relief the ACLU is seeking. Second, and in any event, the Supreme Court just expanded the circumstances in which district court rulings on TROs, temporary restraining orders, can be immediately appealed, in a pair of rulings in which Justice Alito was in the majority. Alito never explains why the TROs in the Department of Education and JGG cases were immediately appealable, but the denial of a TRO in this case was not. Bullet 2. It is questionable whether the applicants complied with the general obligation to seek emergency injunctive relief in the district court before asking for such relief from an appellate court. Here, Alito's objection is that the ACLU didn't give the district court enough time to rule on its renewed request for a temporary restraining order before seeking emergency relief from the Fifth Circuit, complaining that the ACLU went to the Fifth Circuit just 133 minutes after it sought emergency relief from the district court, which it had asked to rule within 45 minutes. The timing is certainly an unusually quick turn by ordinary litigation standards, but number one, the ACLU still did seek emergency injunctive relief in the district court, and two, the circumstances were rather extreme. Numerous media accounts suggest that detainees at Bluebonnet were being loaded onto buses. And three, the rule Alito cites, Rule 8 of the Federal Rules of Appellate Procedure, does not require litigants to give lower courts any specific amount of time to rule, and indeed requires litigants to ask lower courts first only ordinarily. Rule 8 specifically contemplates emergency relief from a court of appeals when a motion having been made, the district court denied the motion or failed to afford the relief requested. Thus, the general obligation Alito describes, even if it's mandatory, was satisfied here. Bullet 3. Under the court's Rule 23.3, except in the most extraordinary circumstances, an application for a stay will not be entertained unless the relief requested was first sought in the appropriate court or courts below or from a judge or judges thereof. Frankly, I don't even understand this point. The rule, as correctly quoted by Alito, requires applicants only to seek emergency relief from the relevant lower courts before asking the Supreme Court for the same. It does not require those courts to rule before the Supreme Court can step in, nor would the alternative make any sense. Yes, the court in ordinary course will usually wait for the lower courts to rule before it steps in, but there's no formal requirement that the court wait, and Alito doesn't quite bring himself to argue otherwise. The bullet point thus implies nefariousness where none exists. Bullet 4. The only papers before this court were those submitted by the applicants. The court had not ordered or received a response by the government regarding either the applicant's factual allegations or any of the legal issues presented by the application. Yes, Alito is not honest. You're correct. Again, this is factually correct, but not any kind of objection to the court's power to rule. Just like a TRO in the district court, there are some circumstances in which the justices feel impelled to act without waiting to hear from the adverse party. That's what every administrative stay from a circuit justice entails, including those entered by Justice Alito. And there are also examples from earlier in the term of the full court acting without waiting for a response too. Calling for a response before the full court rules is certainly the norm, but there have been plenty of exceptions. Bullet 5. The papers before us, while alleging that the applicants were in imminent danger of removal, provided little concrete support for that allegation, and the standard for an injunction pending appeal is supposed to require more. I have been rather dogmatic about how much the Supreme Court has flouted the standard for an injunction pending appeal in various rulings over the last few years. In a nutshell, the court has regularly granted this especially coercive form of emergency relief in contexts in which applicants couldn't possibly have satisfied the high bar for obtaining it. I'm sure it won't shock you to learn that Justice Alito was in the majority in each and every one of the rulings I've criticized on that score. But even if the court were to hew the requirement that coercive relief be granted only when the applicant's right to such relief was indisputably clear, yeah, Alito and Thomas could go visit the Pope. That's a great idea. They should all hang out. I think JD killed him. I'm starting that rumor. Check JD's hands. Does he have anything on them? Was he wearing gloves? No. Because the Supreme Court. Wait, did I fuck this up? Alito jumps right over the obvious reason why the applicant's rights to the notice and judicial review they're seeking in AARP was indisputably clear. Because the Supreme Court, in an opinion Alito joined, just articulated that those rights in the specific context of the Alien Enemy Act on April 7th. Indeed, the court in JGG expressly held that AEA detainees must receive notice after the date of this order that they are subject to removal under the Act. The notice must be afforded within a reasonable time and in such a manner as will allow them to actually seek habeas relief in the proper venue before such removal occurs. Insofar as the application claims that the court's own directives in JGG have not been followed and that the government was planning to imminently remove at least some of the applicants under the AEA without complying with JGG, it sure seems like the standard for an injunction pending appeal was satisfied. Bullet 6. He can be the bouncer at the pearly gates and turn him away. Yeah, Alito seems a little like... this is perhaps the most troubling point Alito makes in his dissent. He is quite obviously referring to an exchange between a Justice Department lawyer, Drew Ensign, and Chief Judge Boasberg in the emergency hearing Boasberg held Friday afternoon in the JGG case, where the ACLU was also trying to get a new TRO to block the apparently imminent AEA removal of folks from Texas. According to multiple accounts of folks who were listening, Ensign said he was unaware of any flight scheduled for Friday, but that he was specifically instructed to reserve the right for the government to conduct removals on Saturday, April 19th. In other words, the DOJ lawyer did not say what Alito said he had said. What's more, according to NBC News, at least 28 AEA detainees were placed on a bus at the Blue Bonnet detention facility on Friday night and were heading for the Abilene airport before the bus turned around. This at least appears to suggest that the government was potentially planning to have a flight take off shortly after midnight on Saturday, which would not have been inconsistent with the letter of Ensign's representation, even if it would have been inconsistent with the notice and process that JGG required. I know. Can karma take the right people? I need some right people. Okay? Like sometimes it's everyone's time at some point. So, I'm not advocating violence. I'm just saying, why not? You say why, I say why not? This matters because the entire premise of Alito's dissent is that the court intervened hastily and prematurely. But to get there, Alito had to misstate, if not misrepresent, what the government had told Chief Judge Boasberg, and then discount the ACLU's credible allegations as backed up by numerous media reports that the additional removals were impending. To be sure, the NBC News report, which includes video of the bus, was not published until Sunday morning after Alito filed his dissent. But even if one is willing to take Justice Department lawyers at their word these days, Ensign had got out of his way to reserve the right to have removals take place on Saturday, which seems to rather decisively undercut Alito's claim that the court had acted prematurely. Yeah, just a massive just coronary infarctions. That's all. It can only last so long. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, cholesterol's been sleeping on the job. Bullet 7. Although the court provided class-wide relief, the district court never certified a class, and this court has never held that a class relief may be sought in a habeas proceeding. Class-wide relief means relief not just to the named plaintiffs, but to everyone who is similarly situated to them and has been identified by the court. In AARP, that class includes, quote, all non-citizens in custody in the Northern District of Texas who were, are, or will be subject to President Trump's Alien Enemy Act proclamation. Thus, Alito is arguing that the Supreme Court erred for two reasons: because the lower court hadn't allowed the case to proceed on a class-wide basis, and because the Supreme Court has never said a habeas petition can be brought on behalf of a class of litigants. Both of Alito's points here are super technical and very slippery. First, nothing stops appellate courts from granting emergency relief to a whole class of litigants just because a district court hasn't yet certified a class. Again, imagine what it would mean otherwise, that a district court's refusal to certify a class would categorically prevent appellate courts from providing any relief to anyone beyond the named plaintiffs until and unless they've reversed the district court on the merits of class certification. I don't really understand that, but I could have to just think about it. That is once again putting the cart before the horse. Provisional class certification for purposes of emergency relief is unusual, but it's not unheard of. And once you accept that proposition, the idea that an appellate court could grant such relief when a lower court did not should hardly seem that troubling. Second, it is technically correct that the Supreme Court, quote, has never held a class relief may be sought in a habeas proceeding. Indeed, this was one of the big reasons why I was critical of the majority ruling in JGG, which funneled most, if not all, of the Alien Enemy Act litigation into habeas. But there are two things Alito doesn't tell unsuspecting readers that, one, he knows, and two, are surely relevant. For starters, the court has reached the merits in a number of habeas cases in which petitioners were a class. Alito even wrote the majority opinion in one of the more recent examples. And if that weren't enough, all 6 circuit courts of appeals that have specifically decided whether habeas class actions are permitted have answered that question in the affirmative. Thus, the court has specifically allowed class-based habeas claims to go forward, including in the immigration context, and including in opinions by Alito. No appellate court has suggested that class-wide relief is unavailable in habeas petitions, even if the Supreme Court has never expressly held that it is. Alito closes his dissent by insisting that the executive must proceed under the terms of our order, JGG, and this court should follow established procedures. The problem is that his dissent would have effectively cleared the way for the executive to flout JGG with no repercussions in the name of abiding by procedures that the court, to say nothing of the ACLU, did not actually violate. It would be bad enough if Alito's dissent were merely tone deaf, but its effort to find something wrong with the majority's intervention smacks of an attempt not to take the law where it leads him, but to try to manufacture a justification for sitting on his hands, while even more folks are wrongly kidnapped, removed to a Salvadoran prison, from which it is proving increasingly difficult to get in. Well, it's impossible. It's fortunate that only one of his colleagues joined him. All right, that's good. That's what I want. All right, we're going to take a break, and we're going to... TFG is just going to appeal whatever the SCOTUS does to himself as Pope. Oh my God, what if he names himself Pope? Wouldn't that be crazy? Yes, patience, right. Teresa, I wonder if any in the Pentagon are embarrassed by what their spokesperson keeps spouting. Oh yeah, let me check the. We're gonna read about little Petey Hegseth. Loose lips sink ships, baby. You know what I'm saying? What's wrong with you? Oh, are they doing Easter stuff today? Why didn't they do Easter stuff yet? I'm so confused. Oh, wait. Oh, shit. I really want to listen to this. There's a Supreme Court case on LGBTQ storybooks. I'm so sorry. I meant for us to listen to that.
Government employees that
Did
they
it start
have
yet?
outside affiliations, their employers or wherever they're
did it-
affiliated with.
Wait, what time is
Well,
it?
we do think that they
I don't even know
are
what time it
officers
is.
of the United States, so we do think they're
7:26.
government employees. But your
Did
point
it
that
not
they
start?
have other affiliations as well, we do think that's
Oh, you
part
guys
of
hear
why
it? I
not
don't.
shade,
Okay,
right?
that's what it is.
Yes,
Sorry.
they're volunteers. To underscore that it's not just that they have the power to make the judgment based on their best scientific judgment, they have the duty.
But I
Can you
hear you
guys
as
hear it?
not relying on the notion that independence in that provision means independent from, your university or your think tank or something like that. That
Sorry.
you think that the word independent here does mean independent from political influence.
I'm going to go back.
Well, under the argument that
Sir,
The chief asked you a question.
Going down,
well, not as a constitution. So there are two sources of amount of political
Okay, we're just
by the
going to
public,
start.
unless the Secretary permits them to do so. Respondents' contrary argument rests entirely on the statutory language providing that the task force shall be independent and, to the extent practicable, not subject to political pressure. But as this court's cases make
I'll
clear,
grab the background for
that
this.
language does not create a restriction on removing the task force members, and it does not impose a bar on reviewing their recommendations. It certainly does not do so clearly enough to overcome the canon of constitutional avoidance, especially since the language itself contemplates some amount of political involvement. In all events, if that statutory language is the constitutional problem, then the solution is straightforward. This court should hold that the language is unenforceable and severable. It is neither necessary nor appropriate to hold instead that task force members must be appointed by the President and confirmed by the Senate. I welcome this court's questions.
Before we get to the constitutional problems, what's the statutory authority to appoint the task force?
So there are two sources of authority, Your Honor. The first is that under the Reorganization Act, the Secretary has the power to exercise all functions and duties of the Director. And the Director, under 299, has the authority to convene the task force.
Isn't that an odd delegation? Normally, it would be the superior or the principal officer who would have the authority, who would delegate it to subordinates.
Well, it's not just a delegation, Your Honor. The Reorganization Act was in place when 299 was enacted. And so when Congress passed 299 and said that the Director could convene the task force, that meant that the Secretary could convene the task force.
So the word, you're using the word convene?
Yes, Your Honor.
Well, I think that normally connotes just calling a meeting or something. The court was convened this morning. The chief didn't appoint any of us.
So I agree, Your Honor, that convene doesn't necessarily connote appointment, but there's no other language in the statute that specifies who will appoint these members. And in light of that, convene is most naturally read to mean convene and select the people who will serve on the board. And that's clearly true before the ACA. Before the ACA was enacted,
This is actually about the ACA.
it's clear that the
So,
Secretary and the
there's a
Director have the
background right
power
there.
to convene to appoint these individuals.
But appointment would not be an issue if they had no authority to require anything of others. It's just advisory.
Well, not as a
Challenge to the
constitutional matter,
ACA
but as a
for
statutory matter. And I
preventative
took your
care
question to be,
coverage.
where's the statutory
Challenge to
authority
the
do this?
ACA's preventative
Before the
care
ACA,
challenge.
It had to be the case that the Secretary and the Director had the authority. It would not be constitutional for the President to select and the Senate to confirm these individuals before the ACA, because before the ACA, everyone agrees they weren't officers, and the Senate has no constitutional power to have any role in the selection of a non-officer. So the only
Okay, I'm going to just explain quickly. I linked what the background to this case is. Under the Affordable Care Act, health insurers and group health plans must cover preventive health services at no additional cost to the patient. The Affordable Care Act does not specify what those preventive health services are. Instead, the law gives U.S. Preventive Services Task Force, an independent panel of experts, the power to determine which preventive services insurers must cover. The task force is made up of blah, blah, blah. But this is what I wanted to. Here we go. The task force recommendations for required preventive care services include contraception, cancer screening, statin medications, and human papillomavirus vaccines. In June 2019, the task force recommended that the pre-exposure prophylaxis known as PrEP, a medicine that is highly effective at preventing HIV, be included as a mandatory preventive care service. The plaintiffs are people who object. They have religious objections to people not getting AIDS. They would like people to get AIDS, and so they don't want PrEP. That's it. Oh, it's bigotry in action yet again in this fucking country.
Only way to construe the statute before the ACA is that the secretary and the director had the ability, and nothing about the ACA changed that.
Can you give me an example of another body that's selected this way? Just with using the operative term convene, and that had been, and that the authority comes from through a subordinate to the principal.
So not off the top of my head, Your Honor, but again, as a statutory matter, if we're just talking about how the statute should be construed, there is no other provision anywhere in the code that says who will pick these people. So the most natural way of reading a provision that says
So they want
to,
the DOJ wants to remove the task force.
Don't you rely, I'm sorry.
What the task force does is fairly technical, medically and scientifically. I mean, is the secretary really supposed to be in the position of going down the line and saying, yeah, I mean, I know you think we should use this particular thing with this atomic structure and all that kind of stuff, but I've got a different view on that. Is that a pertinent consideration in deciding whether they're adequately supervised?
Well, Your Honor, the secretary clearly has the authority to do so. Whether he chooses to exercise that authority or whether he instead chooses to defer to the expert judgment of the task force is irrelevant to the constitutional question. As a constitutional matter and as a statutory matter, he has the authority to review their recommendations. And that's the critical point for here. In addition, though, to take a step back, it's not just that he has the power to review the recommendations. He also has at-will removal power, which this court has repeatedly said is a critical means of control. So even before you get to the question of if they issue a recommendation that he may or may not disagree with, is he going to get into the technical science of it? His mere ability to have at-will removal power is a powerful means of control, and that's what this court has recognized in cases like Edmund and Free Enterprise Fund.
Mr. Mubhan, on that score, the removal at will argument that the government makes hinges a lot on the assumption that the removal power comes with the appointment power.
That should be interesting.
Because the secretary has the power to appoint, he therefore has the power to remove. The Fifth Circuit didn't address the antecedent question whether the secretary indeed has the power to appoint. What do we do about that? Should we remand the case to assess that in the first instance? Just as Justice Thomas's questions point out, there seems to be some reason to question
Badger.
Well, so
Wouldn't
I guess
they
what
just
I would say is the following. There is certainly no removal restriction in the statute. So whoever it is who has the ability to...
Whoever it is an important question, though, right?
So I take the point, Your Honor, but in terms of the question of is there a removal, at-will removal, there is at-will removal.
Wouldn't they just drop the case if the DOJ didn't want to argue it? Wouldn't they just withdraw their
critical
case?
Premise of your argument, and it's an untested premise, one that the Fifth Circuit hasn't addressed.
So,
and is being really addressed here for the first time, as you point out, and therefore, would you object to a remand for that consideration of that question?
Well, we think it is fully briefed here, and we think the court is capable of deciding.
Well, you also cite Cutter and tell us, we're not normally a court, reminding us, as if we need it, that we're a court of review, not first view.
So I won't object if this court doesn't want to address that question, but we do think the answer is quite clear for the reasons with my colleague, Justice Thomas. I don't think the statute could plausibly be construed to vest the appointment in the president and confirm.
I agree with that, but whether it vests it in the director as opposed to the secretary is an interesting question.
Well, but that's a very easy question, because if you agree with me, it's at least in the director. The Reorganization Act...
I understand you think it's easy. Counsel always thinks it's easy. But I'm pretty sure Mr. Mitchell doesn't think it's quite as... He probably thinks it's easy, too, just the other way.
Well, to be fair...
And no court's passed on the question. And so, again, I ask you, do you have any objection if we were to remand it?
We don't, but to be fair, I don't even hear Mr. Mitchell to disagree with what I'm about to say, which is that the Reorganization Act of 1966 clearly vests the secretary with all the powers of the director. So if the director has the power, the secretary has the
And
power.
that includes, doesn't it, subdivision B2, which transfers to the secretary the power to make such provisions as she shall deem appropriate, authorizing the performance of any of the functions of the director?
That's correct, Your Honor.
And so if they have to convene something and no one else is appointing them, then the director appoints them, right?
That's right, and importantly,
And removes them.
correct. And Mr. Mitchell's point about the Reorganization Act, what he focused on is whether the task force is an advisory board. But that's irrelevant to the question we're talking about right now, because that's a question about whether the task force powers have been vested in the secretary.
Now, the chief
director
asks you a question about supervising technical advice. That might be true of even us. We're given law clerks to help us on some of the things we don't know anything about. That's the nature of an agency, isn't it? That they hire experts to help the decision makers come to a conclusion?
Right, that was the essential reasoning in holding a free enterprise fund, in fact, was that you can have bureaucrats but not be ruled by them. So yes, you have bureaucrats who contribute their expertise, but ultimately the final decision power is in a politically accountable head of an agency.
And that word independent could mean that people on the task force have an obligation to give their independent opinion, but that doesn't mean that the secretary has to accept it, correct?
That's exactly right, and I would point this court to how this court has described administrative law judges in Butts versus Economo.
And that's an incredibly strained interpretation of the term independent. Are you independent of the president?
No, Your Honor.
I mean, he is counting on you to exercise a degree of independent judgment. But if somebody's removable at will, that person is not, in any ordinary sense of the term, independent.
Well, with all due respect, Your Honor, in Your Honor's opinion for the court in Collins, this court held that there are many statutes that use the phrase independent to describe an entity that is nevertheless not subject to a removal.
All right, well, maybe that's a little bit unfair, but I mean, maybe I was wrong in Collins. But explain to me, explain to
Now you
me
can see a
how
cat.
somebody can be independent and yet subject to removable on the whim of the president.
Sure. It's, as Justice Sotomayor said, it's independent in the sense that they have both the duty and the power to exercise their own best judgment. That doesn't mean that once they've done so, they're free from accountability. It just means that when they are making the decision, they have an obligation to exercise their best scientific judgment.
Well, let's say they are removable at will, okay? And independent means something. It's like a precatory directive. Still, if the task force rates something A or B, then that's it. And you try to get around, and even if the members are removable at will, the only way you can get around that is through some really jerry-built arguments.
I don't think so, Your Honor. Let me give you the most straightforward of them. Under the statute itself, no recommendation takes effect until the secretary sets the minimum interval period.
Right.
And the minimum interval period is at least 1 year.
Yeah.
So 1 year is more than adequate time for the secretary, if he doesn't agree with the recommendation, to direct the board to rescind it, the force to rescind it, and if the task force doesn't rescind it, to replace them with people who will. That doesn't seem very jerry-built to me. In addition to that, the secretary also has the power to create a pre-approval requirement. Under 300 GG 92, he has rulemaking power to implement the statute, and he can say, before you issue any recommendations, submit it to me for my approval. And if and only if I approve it, can you issue it in the first place? Again, that's not all that jerry-built, and it perfectly serves.
If Congress really wanted these task force members to do the bidding of the secretary, isn't that an incredibly odd way to go about conferring that authority?
No, because critically, we are not saying that Congress wanted the task force to do the secretary's bidding. We agree that the secretary cannot tell the task force to make a given recommendation. If the task force doesn't want to make a recommendation, it doesn't have to make a recommendation. Our point is simply that if the task force does make a recommendation, the secretary can block it. It's, to use an analogy, it's like bicameralism. The Senate can't force the House to pass a bill. But if the Senate doesn't also agree with the bill, it doesn't become a law.
Well, under the argument that you've just made, why can't the secretary demand that a particular recommendation be made using exactly the same authority that you just outlined? What am I missing? The president says, I want you to make this recommendation. And if you don't make
Does
this
he?
recommendation, I'm going
That's
to
what I
remove
want.
you.
Does he?
And replace you with somebody who will make the recommendation.
So he can remove them, but we don't think he has the ability to force them to make the recommendation, because we do think that the phrase independence and more
That's
importantly,
Steve
the phrase,
Lookner asking the hard
recommendations
questions,
made shall be
right?
independent in
Hard-hitting
299
journalism.
B4
I'm just
A6.
kidding.
We do think that
Poor
that
Steve.
language does prevent that. And that makes perfect sense. If you take a step back and think about the statutory scheme, Congress was, as it often does, balancing competing objectives. On the one hand, it wanted the benefits of an expert body. It wanted recommendations that reflected their best
At
scientific
Pope
judgment.
Frank?
But on the other hand, it
Or-
recognized that you need to have political accountability. And so the secretary can block it. But and
number-
that solves the
I'm
problem.
number
It means
2.
that no final decision can be made that binds the public unless the secretary
Closest to
approves it.
God?
And doesn't
I don't know.
that make it
What does he call
difficult
himself?
for you and your inferiority argument? Because what if it's a big priority of the president to have these AIDS prevention drugs available, and the task force says, nope, not going to do it? I mean, doesn't it seem then that that insulates them, especially if, Justice Alito said, well, what if you fire him and say, I'm going to appoint a task force who will approve these as preventative care?
So 2 points about that, Your Honor. The first is I think this court has already resolved that question in Free Enterprise Fund. So in Free Enterprise Fund, this court held that once the PCAOB was made removable at will by the commission, they were inferior officers. Even though it was conceded, there was no statutory authority whatsoever for the commission to force the PCAOB.
So that's enough. Your position, because it was a little bit difficult to tell in your brief, you're saying that's enough. At-will removal is all that's required.
No, that's not what I'm saying, Your Honor. We've said that it's both the at-will removal power plus the powers of supervision we've talked about. But critically, those are powers of supervision to block recommendations. You asked me, well, what about forcing them to make a recommendation? As to forcing them to make a recommendation, our point is you don't need supervision in that respect. Free Enterprise Fund already holds that as long as they're removal at will, the fact that you can't force them to take action does not make them principal.
Can you force? Go ahead.
And the last thing I was going to say, which perhaps Justice Kavanaugh was about to say, is you do still have at-will removal power in that context. And so therefore, you do have some means of ensuring the recommendation gets made. It's just the means is replacing them if they won't do it. But you don't have statutory authority to force them to start, and Free Enterprise Fund already blesses that arrangement.
Well, why is it that in your brief, and again here, you're reluctant to say that the removal power is sufficient?
Well, we just don't think the court needs to go that far. This court has always, in cases like Edmunds and Free Enterprise Fund, taken an incremental approach to how it determines the line between inferior and principal officers. And we think in this case where there's both at-will removal plus abundant means of back-end supervision, that's all this court needs to do. And to be candid, I think there would be harder questions if, for example, you had an officer who had the power to issue very important, very broad-ranging decisions that took immediate effect, couldn't be stopped on the back end, and the only means of supervision was front-end removal. We haven't taken a position one way or the other on that, but I do think that that's a harder question, and that's why we don't think this court needs to go there. But that said, you don't have to go very much further than that on the facts of this case, because here, not only do you have at-will removal, you have the critical difference that the recommendations don't take effect immediately. They don't take effect for at least a year, and within that year period, the secretary has ample time to ensure they never take effect. And so those two alone, we're perfectly comfortable saying that that's sufficient for inferior officers.
Mr. Mupin, can I go back to Justice Gorsuch's questions about at-will removal, because he at least suggested that we may not have at-will removal here. And I guess I'm wondering about the presumptions in our law related to
Is someone there?
removability of officers. So
Edible removal.
do we really need to send it back for resolution of that if the law presumes that where there is no statement regarding this, at-will removal is at play?
So again, Your Honor, I agree. I don't think there's any colorable argument that there's a removal restriction here. The only colorable dispute is whether there's actually appointment authority.
Right, and what does our law say about that situation? I mean, part of the problem here, I think, is that we are talking about a statute that doesn't speak to particular things.
I think
and so to the extent that the law doesn't speak to the removability of these people, I thought our presumption was that we do have at-will removal.
Yes, the presumption is that there's at-will removal by whoever has appointment authority. And I think the question with Justice Gorsuch is, who is the person who has appointment authority? I don't think there's any serious dispute that whoever it is has at-will removal power.
And so do you think we need to get to the bottom of who it is?
Well, yeah.
In this case?
Either here or on remand, of course, if we need to be right that the Secretary does have appointment authority to defeat their claim. We think that the Secretary does have appointment authority. We think it's clear enough from the statute.
Who would it be if it isn't the Secretary?
Well, in my view, the only other colorable reading of the statute is that it would be the director, because the statute says the director shall convene. But of course, that would render the statute unconstitutional, because the director is not the head of a department. And so that's yet another reason why you should read the statute the way we suggest, that when it says the director, under the backdrop of a statute that vests all powers to the director and the Secretary has the power. My friend on the other side, his move is to say, no, it's the president who has the appointment authority confirmed by the Senate, invoking the backtrack principle that under the Appointments Clause, presidential appointment and Senate confirmation is the default rule for appointment. But the reason that doesn't work, as I was discussing earlier, is before the ACA, these were not officers. And if they were not officers, it would be unconstitutional for the Senate to have any role in their confirmation. So you cannot read the statute to have presidential appointment and Senate confirmation before the ACA, and nothing in the text of the statute changed after the ACA about who does the appointing.
I think you said earlier that at-will removal gives the Secretary the power to influence the content of recommendations before they're made. Is that accurate?
I think that's correct, Your Honor.
And then, because that comes from the at-will removal power, correct?
Correct.
And how is that then square with the word independent?
Because it's still the task force ultimate judgment that matters. Yes, they can consider what the Secretary wants. They may be even influenced by the fact that if they don't do what he wants, they might get removed. But it's still ultimately their call as a statutory matter. So I would point, for example, the Benefits Review Board.
That's an odd definition of independent, I suppose. Does independent in this context have any different meaning because the folks in question are not government employees, that they have outside affiliations, they're employers or wherever they're affiliated with?
Well, we do think that they are officers of the United States, so we do think they're government employees. But your point that they have other affiliations as well, we do think that's part of why—
They're not paid, right?
Yes, they're volunteers. But we do think that that's part of the reason why it uses the phrase independent, to underscore that it's not just that they have the power to make the judgment based on their best scientific judgment, they have the duty.
But I hear you as not relying on the notion that independence in that provision means independent from, your university or your think tank or something like that. That you think that the word independent here does mean independent from political influences and particularly from presidential ones.
Well, in making the recommendation, we think that they have to exercise their best scientific judgment free from all of it. They shouldn't do what their university tells them to do.
Well, then how can they be removed?
They shouldn't necessarily do what the Secretary tells them to do. They should exercise their independent judgment based on the science.
But the Secretary might say, and I think you acknowledge this, if you don't make the following recommendation, I'm going to fire you.
That's right. And so the analogy I would give you, Your
That's
Honor—
okay, right?
Yes. The analogy I would give you is the Benefits Review Board in the Department of Labor. So the Benefits Review Board in the Department of Labor is an adjudicatory body that is at-will removable. Because they adjudicate cases, they should adjudicate cases based on their view of the facts and the law. But it's true that if the Secretary tells them, look, you come out one way, you're going to get fired, they might get fired, but they should still exercise their independent best judgment when they issue the ruling.
Wait, what?
Language to the extent practicable doing.
So, I think that it's not entirely clear, Your Honor, but I think that, if anything, it underscores our point that you
Why
should
isn't
not
anyone
read this
talking about
statute,
cause? Removal
especially in
for
light of constitutional
cause.
avoidance, to say that
Removal
the
for
Secretary can't
cause.
exercise the types of review we've said.
I mean, it does suggest that Congress was thinking in some circumstances it would not be practicable.
there's at least-
And what circumstances would Congress be thinking that about?
Well, at a bare minimum, the circumstances where the statute would be unconstitutional if the Secretary couldn't engage in that level of supervision. So I think that
And
language
this is
just
very,
underscores the
this
constitutional
doesn't
avoidance
sound
point,
independent
that
at
the
all.
limited forms of review that
This
on the back
doesn't
end
sound
that we've
independent
emphasized
at all.
have got to be permissible under that statute, both because
This guy's
it has
arguing
that
both
language in it
sides.
and because the canon of constitutional avoidance says you should read it that way. And again, going back to the adjudicators, it's not just the Benefits Review Board. More generally,
Why hasn't anyone
under the
said
APA,
removal for
the statutory
cause?
scheme for adjudication has exactly this feature to it. You have adjudicators who are tasked with exercising independent judgment,
I hate
but their
this world.
actions on the back end can be reviewed.
Yeah, I understand the analogy to adjudicators, and I thought that's what was in your brief, but normally you wouldn't say with adjudicators that the supervising officer can influence the content of the adjudication.
Well, yes.
They can only review the adjudication after it's been made.
Well, but they also, as the Benefits Review Board says, you can also influence, you have at-will removal, and every one of these adjudicators knows that they're acting under the shadow of that.
Dude, you just said two things, that they should be shielded from political influence, and then they can be removed for political influence. What?
And that's, so you're making the
No,
analogy
no one
then
is
to
talking
adjudicators
about
here,
the
right? Because
cause
that's a
of
good analogy,
removal.
And because their recommendations can be reviewed before they take effect, it's similar to all the adjudication cases where there's been supervisor review of the ultimate decision.
That's right. And one way of making the point is, for these individuals, if the Secretary tells them to do something and they don't do it, they do the opposite and make a different recommendation, that's not insubordinate, right? Because they have statutory power to make their independent best judgment. For most inferior officers, if the president or your head of your agency tells you to do X and you do Y, that is insubordinate. So that's what the language does. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to be protected from removal on the back end. You can be independent, make your own statutory judgments, but then have to face the consequences if the head of the agency disagrees with those.
Thank you, Counsel.
But that's not
Justice Thomas, any
cause.
further?
This is weird.
Briefly, what role did you say the Reorganization Act played with respect to the task force?
So several roles. The first is on the appointment question. We think that the Reorganization Act is a way to confirm that the Secretary has the direct appointment authority with respect to the task force members.
Now, is the task force, I thought the reorganization dealt with agencies within HHS.
That's correct, Your Honor.
Is the task force an agency?
We think the task force is within the AHRQ and within PHS, so it's within.
So what supports that?
Well, it is an entity that is convened by the Public Health Service, selected by the Public Health Service, supervised by the Public Health Service.
Is it structurally or statutorily designated a part of an agency?
Again, there's not anything that says they are or aren't, but I think the clear best reading of the statute is when you have an entity that's convened by the Public Health Service, selected by the Public Health Service, supervised by the Public Health Service, and supported by the Public Health Service, it's part of the Public Health Service.
Justice Alito?
No.
Justice Sotomayor?
There are any number, I think we mentioned them in our opinion, the opinion in Collins, that are deemed independent, but the president still has the power to remove the leadership, correct?
Correct.
I know that it seems to me that if the task force members are not paid, that means that they would take their oath more seriously, wouldn't it? Because they're not afraid of losing a government job.
Look, I'm not sure I would psychoanalyze them that way.
No, but my colleagues are. They're saying that because they could be removed, they're going to automatically ignore their statutory duty.
Look, I think that they will exercise their statutory duty, and
which is to give a recommendation independently.
But I would say I wouldn't just say that means that the removal power isn't a means of supervision and influence.
Obviously, but I go back to the examples I've made, which is my law clerks, I ask to give me their independent judgment of what an answer should be, and they'll tell you there's sometimes, a lot of times, I don't accept it. And I certainly have the power to fire them, and they still do it.
Correct, Your Honor.
All right. That's the nature of asking people to advise you, correct?
Yes.
Which some advice you will accept, some you won't. And you can choose to ignore your obligation, but that's not something we presume you'll do.
Correct.
Thank you.
Justice Kane? Justice Gorsuch?
So I understand that you agree that the government, the secretary cannot force a recommendation, but lean heavily on the fact the secretary can stop recommendations. I think your best authority for that may be Section 202. If I'm correct, you tell me if I'm wrong. And what in 202, if it is your best authority, gives the secretary that power?
So it's not quite, Your Honor. The basis for the distinction is coming from 299B4A6. We think the statutory language says that they shall be independent in the recommendations made. And so we think that means that they get to make their recommendations, but that doesn't necessarily mean that those recommendations have to take effect.
Right.
Now, the statutory power to block them, we agree, is both 202 and the Reorganization Act.
Okay. And focusing on 202 in particular, and putting aside the Reorganization Act for the moment, what in that empowers the secretary to stop a recommendation from taking effect?
Well, so the Assistant Secretary for Health, who is supervised and directed by the Secretary, shall administer the entire public health service. And the ability to administer an agency is the language Congress generally uses to describe an agency head's power to control the whole agency. As we cited in the reply brief, that's the language that allows the Secretary of State to administer the entire State Department, is the Secretary of State shall administer. So we think that if it weren't for B4A6, there would be no question at all that the Assistant Secretary, and therefore the Secretary, could direct what the task force does, root and branch, from front to end. Because of B4A6, we acknowledge that the specific governs the general, and they have to be independent in making their recommendations. But that doesn't mean that they can't be blocked on the back end.
Thank you.
Justice Kavanaugh?
I might have misunderstood that, but I thought you were also relying on 300 GG 13B1 for the authority to reject a recommendation.
Well, that gives the authority to delay the effective date, but then you need some other source of authority to then make the recommendation go away.
So that's just the when, that's not the whether.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Justice Barrett?
I just want to clarify what you mean by the word independent or how you understand it. I mean, Mr. Mitchell is reading it in a very maximalist way. You are taking a middle road. I wonder, I mean, I was thinking of the law clerk example myself. Does independent even have to mean independent of the secretary? Because it seems to me that I could give my law clerk some advanced direction. I could say, I want you to make an independent judgment, and I want it to be free of political influence or free of outside influence. And by that, I would mean outside the court, I might mean outside of our chambers, but I might not mean for it to be apart from me, not independent of me. And I could even do that ex ante. I could say, give me your best understanding of this statute, which your best take on its interpretation, seen through the lens of, you know, the way I interpret statutes, the way I see law. So not entirely independent. If you see statutes, I mean, so, you know, I don't put a huge amount of stock in legislative history. So if I say, you know, give me your best read on a statute and that's what they bring back, that's not going to be very useful to me. So they're not independent of me or my instruction, even though I could say they were independent in a very real sense of the word. But I take it that you don't adopt that view.
So, Your Honor, we could have taken an even narrower interpretation of independence along the lines you're suggesting. We thought the better reading of the statute in light of its context is the one we have articulated, where there is independence in the recommendation made, even vis-a-vis the secretary.
Even vis-a-vis the secretary.
But it doesn't block the secretary on the back end. Of course, if you want to interpret the statute even more narrowly than that, then that just makes it even harder for Mr.
Well, I
Mitchell.
mean, I think the fact that you could interpret it and I think give content to the word independence in an even narrower sense, I mean, you have a more middle of the road. And then, as I said, I think Mr. Mitchell has a really maximalist view. I mean, at a minimum, I think it shows that the maximalist view isn't necessary.
I think that's right, Your Honor. And again, ultimately, I think one way of thinking about this is an appointments clause challenge. So the question question is whether there's adequate supervision. The court doesn't necessarily need to get into the exact level of what independent means and does it mean what you said or what I said. All the court really needs to say is there's enough supervision that these are properly understood as inferior officers. That's all you need to do to reject the claim here and reverse the decision below.
Thank you.
Justice Jackson?
And we also can rely on the constitutional avoidance canon. I mean, didn't you mentioned it a couple times, so let me just invite you to explain how that would work in terms of deciding who has the better reading of independence.
Sure, and so, we do think we have the better reading, but if you thought there was ambiguity here about what the scope of independence was or whether the appointment power was vested in the secretary rather than just the director, this court obviously reads statutes to avoid constitutional problems rather than create them. So you shouldn't read the phrase independent to impose a removal restriction that's not there, to impose a bar on review that's not there, to impose restrictions on who can appoint that aren't there. You should have read the statute to reinforce that the secretary has adequate supervision so that the statute as written by Congress can continue to operate. And Mr. Mitchell's only real response to all of that is again to say, well, the statute is actually perfectly constitutional on even his theory because he thinks the president can appoint and the Senate can confirm. But that doesn't work as a statutory matter for the reasons we discussed. And once you take that off the table, his reading does create serious constitutional problems with the statute that you can void if you adopt our reading.
Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Mr. Mitchell?
Mr. Chief Justice, and may it please the Court. The Court of Appeals correctly held that task force members are principal officers who must be appointed by the President and the Senate as required by Article 2. They cannot be inferior officers because their preventive care coverage mandates are neither directed nor supervised by the Secretary of Health and Human Services or by anyone else who has been appointed as a principal officer. The governing statutes make this clear. Section 300 GG-13A1 gives the task force alone the prerogative to impose preventive care coverage mandates on insurers, regardless of whether the Secretary approves or disapproves a task force recommendation. And Section 299B-4A1 and A6 require that task force members and their recommendations be kept independent and, to the extent practicable, protected from any type of political pressure. These statutes cannot coexist with a regime in which the Secretary can overrule the task force coverage recommendations or deny them binding effect. The Court also has no authority to sever Section 299B-4A6 as proposed by the government. The remedy prescribed by this Court must take the form of a final judgment to be entered by the District Court on remand, and a federal district court has no authority and no ability to formally revoke or cancel a statutory provision when entering judgment for a party. More importantly, a remedy from this Court must, to the maximum possible extent, respect the will of Congress as reflected in its enacted laws. Congress has chosen to create an independent task force and shield it from political pressure.
Not.
And the
I think the other one was the government.
Honors that congressional decision. The government's proposed remedy would rewrite the statute into something unrecognizable by the Congress that enacted the ACA. And it is not even clear that Congress would have approved a regime in which politicians, rather than an independent task force, decide the preventive care that insurers must cover. I welcome the Court's questions.
Mr. Mitchell, your argument depends on a much broader reading of independent than the government's. Would you address the government's more limited view of independence?
Well, there's two different words in play here. It's not just the word independent, which appears in both Section 299B-4A1 and A6. It's also the phrase in subsection A6 that says the task force is to be protected from political pressure to the extent practicable. And we don't see any way that statutory language can be squared with the regime envisioned by the government, where the Secretary can come in and influence the task force decisions on the front end, which Mr. Mupon once again acknowledged in oral argument. He believes the Secretary can do that. And we don't see how that can be squared with the actual statutory language. Mr. Mupon suggests invoking the canon of constitutional avoidance in a way to bend subsection A6 to make it more accommodating of his view as secretarial power. But the constitutional avoidance canon is inapplicable here for many reasons. Number one, Mr. Mupon's proposed reading of subsection A6 does not avoid any of the constitutional problems that occurred. Under the government's interpretation of subsection A6, the task force members are still principal officers because they have unreviewable discretion when deciding not to recommend A or B ratings on a particular preventive care service, or when they decide to withdraw a previous A or B rating that they have conferred prior to their decision to withdraw. That means they have final decision-making authority that's not subject to direction and supervision. The second,
I'm sorry, I don't understand that. Can you help?
Yes.
What do you mean? They have unreviewable authority? First of all, I thought there was an interval period that the statute imposed.
That's right.
What function is that if not to have some consideration of what these recommendations are? That's one question.
Sure.
And then another is what do you mean about them having unreviewable discretion not to make a recommendation?
So the test for principal officer status is whether the officer in question is directed and supervised in his decision-making. On the government's reading of section 299B-4A6, if the court were to adopt that view, the secretary would have the ability to overrule task force decisions to confer A or B ratings on preventive care. But the secretary would not have any authority to overrule the task force.
But why is that? Why is that? I mean, they make a recommendation and they have rejected other recommendation or other options. The secretary puts into place the interval period, reviews what they did and didn't do, and says, I'm going to remove you. As a result, I don't like what you did or didn't do, and you're out.
That doesn't make them into inferior officers, and Arthrex holds as much, because Arthrex acknowledges situations in which a principal officer can, through informal means, influence the decision-making of a subordinate official. And Arthrex says that's still not good enough. There has to be a formal authority to review the decisions that are being made.
But what about all the adjudicatory cases? Mr. Mupon says this is more like Edmonds. This is independent in the sense that people are making recommendations using their own best judgment, but they're still at-will removable, and we found that is okay.
But they also have all their decisions subject to review by a principal officer. What this court said in Edmond was that the reason those judges were deemed inferior was because they could not issue any final decision on behalf of the United States without being allowed to do so by a principal officer.
Mr. Mitchell, I take that point, and the government concedes that a decision not to list something is unreviewable.
Yes.
But says that Free Enterprise Fund blessed that arrangement already. What are your thoughts?
The difference in Free Enterprise Fund was the SEC had all sorts of supervisory authority over the PCAOB, the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board, that is not present here. The SEC could review and alter any rulemaking done by the board. The SEC could review and overrule any sanction that was being imposed by the board.
But what about any non-action by the board?
Well, if you look at page 504 of the court's opinion in Free Enterprise Fund, it lists all the ways in which the SEC had these oversight authorities. And this is not, with all respect, Your Honor, this is not a situation of non-action. When the task force decides to issue a C, D, or I rating, rather than an A or B rating, that is action. It's not inaction. If the task force decides to withdraw an A or B rating that it previously conferred, that is also action and rather than inaction. So the government's brief tries to rely on the act-omission distinction. It just doesn't hold up here. There will be situations in which the task force can take affirmative actions that cause a certain type of preventive care not to receive the A or B rating, and the government concedes that's unreviewable. So that means they're still principal officers. But there's a second problem as well. Even if this court were to think that task force members become inferior officers under the government's interpretation of the statute, they are still unconstitutionally appointed because Congress has not vested the Secretary of Health and Human Service with the authority to appoint the task force. And the Court of Appeals did not reach this question, as Justice Gorsuch noted during the questioning of Mr. Mupon. But the court would have to conclude that there was vesting of this authority in the Secretary before it can say that they're constitutionally
So are you
appointed
saying we
now.
should remand to the Fifth Circuit to let them address that for the first time?
The court should not remand unless it disagrees with our principal officer argument, or if the court wants to impose the severance remedy suggested by the government.
So if we disagreed with your principal officer argument, you would say that you disagree with their principal officer argument, but then remand to the Fifth Circuit to give them a crack at the appointment.
I think there would have to be a remand in that situation, Justice Barrett, unless the court thought the issue was so open and shut.
Why do you think the Fifth Circuit didn't reach it? I saw that this was a huge part of the briefing before the Fifth Circuit.
It was.
It seems to me that it wasn't merely an assumption, it was a conclusion. But in their whole reasoning, the conclusion was...
Well, if I can defend the Court of Appeals for a moment, Justice
Yes.
Sotomayor, they did not need to reach that question because they concluded, number one, the task force members are principal officers. So there's no need to decide whether Congress vested the appointment authority in the secretary. You only need to reach that question if you think they're inferior officers, because even inferior officers still need to be appointed by the President and the Senate, unless Congress has affirmatively opted out of the default rule. But if you think they're principal officers, you don't need to reach that question at all. The second reason I think the Court of Appeals refused to rule on it was because they rejected the government's proposed severance remedy. And the court will also need to address this point if it wants to sever Section 299B-4A6, because the severance remedy proposed by the government is premised on the idea that the Secretary has constitutional authority vested by Congress to appoint the task force. If the Secretary doesn't have that power because Congress hasn't vested the power in the Secretary, then the government's severance remedy does not work, because the inferior officers would still have to be appointed by the President and the Senate, even if they're considered inferior officers.
Thank you.
I guess I don't understand why you're separating the principal officers and the removability. I thought whether or not they are principal officers in part turns on whether or not they are removable at will. You seem to have separated them in a way that is confusing to me, so can you help?
Well, we don't mean to separate the inquiry. Removability is a factor to consider. It's not the be-all and end-all of principal officer status, and this Court has never held that.
I understand, but you said the Fifth Circuit didn't have to really go into appointments or removability because they determined that they're principal officers. And I thought you can only reach the issue of whether or not they're principal officers by examining such things as how they are appointed and how they are removed.
The question Justice Sotomayor asked was, why didn't the Fifth Circuit rule on whether Congress had vested the Secretary of Health and Human Services with appointment authority over the task force? That was the question I was answering, and the Fifth Circuit had no need to reach that issue, and this Court also has no need to reach this issue unless it disagrees with our argument on principal officers, or unless the Court wants to impose the government's proposed severance.
No, please.
In the reply brief, the government came back with Hartwell. You want to address that case?
Yeah, Hartwell's not on point because in Hartwell, the statute required the Secretary of the Treasury to specifically approve the appointment of that inferior officer. So Hartwell concluded that was enough to vest the appointment power in the Secretary of the Treasury. We don't have anything like that in these statutes. Nothing in any of the statutes here requires the Secretary of Health and Human Services to affirmatively approve the appointment of task force members.
And I guess the government comes back there and says, but they have broader authority the Secretary has broader authority to carry out the provisions, 299A and the Reorg Act. They say those together give the Secretary the authority to essentially stand in the shoes, I suppose would be one way to characterize their argument, of the director. You want to respond to that?
Sure. The Secretary is allowed to appoint the task force. We acknowledge that. Anyone is allowed to appoint the task force under the statute. The question is under the Constitution who can appoint. The statute doesn't say anything about who appoints, so anybody can appoint them. The AHRQ director appointed them for a time.
Well, if you lose your principal, I think that's important. If you lose your principal officer argument, so that's the premise, not saying you will, but if you do, and you just said, then you can read the statute to allow the Secretary to appoint, well, that's kind of the end of it.
No, I don't think so. That's not vesting. Right? Anyone can appoint under the statute. The Secretary of Energy could appoint. The President could appoint. The AHRQ director could appoint. Someone from the private sector could appoint. The statute doesn't say anything at all.
J.D. Vance killed the Pope.
No one is vested with the authority.
What the
Because
hell?
the statute takes no position
What
on
the
that.
hell?
Yeah, so, okay, and I think I understand your argument. Your argument
Oh my God, I wondered why he was wearing those
specifically to appointment,
black lace
general
gloves.
Authorities in the
Oh my
reorganization
God.
of 299 are not enough.
That's right.
And that's why Hartwell's different, because
That's right.
Hartwell,
We have a specific reference in the statute in Hartwell to the Secretary of the Treasury.
The chat had to tell me the Pope was dead, Gal. I didn't even know the Pope died.
Your view that Congress
That's how
actually
out
wrote
of
a
it I
statute
was.
without saying who should
Right?
appoint
I
us.
know,
Because
Kim.
they didn't need the
Without
word.
even
What
thinking
the hell?
that it was
I think he
saying
just
who should
wanted to
appoint
tell
us, that
them
Congress was leaving this, like,
how much he
just to
hated
the-
him. That's why.
whatever they come
I think
up
he
with.
made an
Yes,
exception.
because this was initially
My last
established as a
message
purely
on earth
advisory
is going to
body,
be how
so it
much
didn't
I
matter
hate
under
J.D.
the
Vance.
Constitution who appointed them. The appointments clause
Protect the
didn't apply to
couches.
task force when it was first created.
That's what he said. Those were his last
Even though
words.
it's purely advisory.
Protect the
to pick up on
couches.
Justice Kagan's point, it's unlikely that Congress just was throwing it out there in terms of who would.
I mean, usually Congress
mean,
thinks
you
that it
know-
does things like that, right? I mean, it would be an
People don't really realize just how much of a petty bitch Pope Francis was, okay? I'm going to tell you right now. Exactly. There you go. JD, you killed the fucking Pope. There you go. Oh, no, he's a machine. He's like one of those Terminators, you know, but the bad kind, the kind of janky kind that doesn't work really well. Yeah, sorry. That's it.
an odd statute. I doubt you could find another where Congress has set up a board and said, you know, just not said.
Well, all they said.
Who should make up the board?
All they said is that the AHRQ director shall convene the task force. And convene does not mean appoint, as Justice Thomas mentioned earlier.
No, but in the
could.
absence of anything else, it would be a
Black
natural
cloud,
reading
black
to say,
plague.
when you're looking at one person and saying he can convene the board, that means, and there's nobody else out there to actually pick the board members, that means you should also pick the board members.
He's certainly allowed to pick the board members, Justice Kagan. What we're saying is the statute
Oh,
doesn't forbid
that's
other
a
people
great-
from appointing. The president could appoint
Hey, Seth, what a
members of the
fucking
task force. He could have done
ass.
that prior to the ACA, and he can do it after the ACA. In fact,
Pete
we think he's
Hegseth.
constitutionally
Listen, I'm
compelled
so
now after the ACA to
messy.
appoint them with the advice and consent of the
just
Senate. There is no statute that
piece of
forbids the
shit.
president
Well, if
to
convene
appoint.
does mean
I know.
appoint,
I'm sad
then we
too,
do have a
actually.
problem on
I
an
really
inferior
liked Pope
officer
Frank.
theory, don't we?
There is a problem, yes, because now we have a statute that's requiring the appointment of a principal officer
Well,
by
even on the
someone who's not
inferior-
even a head of department.
Yeah, but even if you should lose that argument again, and we're talking about inferior officers, Mr. Mitchell, if we read convene to mean vesting the appointment power in the director, that's a problem.
That's a big problem. It means the statute is unconstitutional, and the court should therefore reject any interpretation of the word convene that makes it synonymous with appoint, because that would create not simply a constitutional question, but a constitutional violation.
That's where you,
Wait,
you
why?
pull in 299A, which says the secretary shall carry out the statutory provisions acting through the director. I mean, that's their response to that. right?
Maybe that works. But again, the question Justice Gorsuch was asking me is if A1 is construed to vest the appointment power in the AHRQ director, even the government would agree with
Yeah,
this. That's
that
unconstitutional.
alone would be a problem. I totally agree. But then maybe you have to figure out how to fix that problem. And one way that the government points out is, well, the statute itself essentially fixes that problem.
I'm sorry, I'm getting a little messy at the end here. Okay, so so the Democrats say Pete Hegseth needs to go. And then Pete Hegseth, because he's ridiculous, is your agenda is illegals, trans, and DEI, all of which are no longer allowed at DOD. And so the Democrats said, well, here's Pete's point of view. He's a little drunk, drunk. Secretary drunk. I fucking love that. Secretary drunk. Fucker. He's such a fucker. Oh my God.
Because it says that the secretary
What's with all the
can
beavers?
carry out the duties of the director.
Maybe that works, but the question again under the Article 2 is where has Congress vested the appointment power? And if Congress has vested it in the AHRQ director, who is not even a head of department, the AHRQ director can't even appoint inferior
Peace, love, I
officers.
didn't see you
And the
come in.
government agrees
Hello,
with us on this
darling. How are
issue.
you?
One thing we all agree on is that the task force was unconstitutionally appointed for the 13-year period that began in March of 2010, when the Affordable Care Act was
It's a
first
good
enacted
troll.
into law, through June of 2023, when Secretary Becerra reappointed the
I
task force.
got
Everyone
beaver
agrees that those were
on my
unconstitutional
mind. We need to watch
appointments,
Hundreds of
and everyone
Beavers again.
agrees, I would think, that the recommendations that issued during that 13-year period cannot be enforced until the task force reissues those recommendations after receiving a constitutional appointment. So it's hard for me to understand why the government
Yeah, I love me a good Jesuit, you know?
when at the very least we
Give me a
should be
good
entitled to an
Jesuit
injunction
priest.
that restrains the enforcement of previously
that's
issued
what's
task
up.
force recommendations.
I don't want to belabor it, but I think to Justice Gorsuch's point, which is a good one, they're saying constitutional avoidance would say, well, don't read it to be the director in isolation. read the other provisions which give the secretary authority over the director so that the secretary can do the convening/appointing, and that solves the constitutional problem.
Yeah, Justice Kavanaugh, I agree that the secretary is allowed to appoint the task force, and we've never disputed that.
And so it's
The question
vesting
is-
by law under Article 2. That's your key point there.
Right, vested by Congress. Where has Congress by law vested that authority? And if the statute is vesting the authority in the AHRQ director, that is unconstitutional, even if they're inferior officers. And that's why the court, I think, has to reject an interpretation of the word convene that equates it to appoint.
And you're saying, as well as I understand it, that if Congress didn't vest it in the director, but vested it in the director and the secretary and 15 other people in between, that's a problem too.
It's a problem too because these are principal officers, so Congress
Even
can't.
if they're inferior officers, would it be a problem if if Congress vested the power to appoint an inferior officer in the secretary plus 15 people? Is that permissible?
I'm not sure. It would, at the very least, if they have vested it in the secretary, and they also go on to say in the
Jen
statute that other people can also
Griffey,
exercise the
you're
power,
so
it still has to be, I think,
cool.
ultimately
You
the head
didn't
of
have
the
to
department.
do that. I
But
love
what if it's- What
you.
if it's vesting it in the director?
I love you,
subject to the
Jen. Thank
supervision and control
you.
of the
I
secretary?
am so glad
there
to
aren't
see you.
14
I'm
other
just
people
glad you're
wandering
here.
around. It's in the director because
Thanks,
he's
Jen.
the person who
Yay,
convenes.
Wake and Bake is
subject to the
back.
secretary
Back,
because
back.
the statute otherwise gives the secretary supervisory control over the director.
I don't think that's good enough, Justice Kagan. I think
Well,
the statute would have to say
hello,
the secretary must affirmatively approve
Snow.
the assistant secretary or the director's recommendation. That was Hartwell. If the statute went that far, I would agree. That's vested. I don't think it's, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Justice Kavanaugh. But doesn't that prove the point? There are all of these questions, and shouldn't we leave this to
Thanks,
the Fifth Circuit
Jen.
on remand
You
if
didn't have to do
lose
that,
the
love.
principal officer point?
Yes, I do believe that it should be remanded if the court thinks it necessary to reach this question. We don't think the court should reach this question, or any court should reach this
What
question,
if,
because
just to stay on this point,
Yes.
what if, Justice
Lemon
Kagan's
is
point,
like
what if it said
shaking its
secretary
head.
or
Boo,
director?
boo. I love you.
if
I
it says
love
the
you
secretary or
so
director may
much.
appoint, then Congress has vested the appointment authority in a head of department. But we would still say that's unconstitutional because they're principal officers.
lemon is
So if the
kissing.
court-
Putting that aside.
If the court disagrees with
I
us,
know,
if they
Jen
reject
walks
our
into the
principal
lounge,
officer
starts throwing
argument,
money.
That's the question
Don't
that would have to
fuck
be
with
resolved
me,
by the Fifth Circuit on
fellas.
remand,
That's
Justice
right.
Kavanaugh,
I mean,
because-
it's a curious thing, just to continue to say, it's vested in two places. One is constitutional and the other is unconstitutional.
But at least Congress has made the vesting in a head of department.
Well,
And then I
but-
think the head of department would have to exercise that authority.
Well, what if you didn't, though? What if the secretary didn't exercise that authority, but the other person did? I mean,
Love you.
We've never had a case like that.
I don't think
but-
there has, but I think the secretary would have to approve the appointment for it
Yeah,
to
no,
be valid
I-
under Hartwell.
Okay.
So you're saying that under any circumstance, invested in 15 different places, but
Can we get to the point of why you're trying to remove people
Secretary has
because
to be
they're
some way.
recommending
You're
prep?
requiring, if I have an employee and they do something, and if I don't like it, I tell them, and if I like it, I leave it alone. You want the secretary to sign a piece of paper that says, the director took this action, I saw the task force, I saw the recommendations, I saw him leaving them in place, and that doesn't mean that the secretary agrees?
No, we don't think the
take
secretary
my
has the
money.
You
authority
think
to
that the
do any of that.
Constitution requires him?
You know,
to
I'll
give
cash
him
app you
Justice
back
Kagan's
anytime.
example,
So you just tell me and I'll just
that
send it right on to
the
you, my love.
director is
You're such a
subject to
great person.
supervision.
I'm glad you're off work.
Is Your Honor's question asking
Fuck
whether
yeah.
the secretary has to approve the task force's recommendations, or are
Thank
you,
you,
is Your Honor
Catholics,
asking about
or
whether the
whatever,
secretary has to
Christians,
approve an
whatever you
appointment
are.
to the task
I know I
force?
love Hello
Both.
Dolly.
All right, so
Both.
Is this
If-
oral? Oh, no,
this is a
it's
hypothetical
not,
that's being
Kim.
asked from
Let me
Justice
give you the
Gorsuch. If there's a
background again. I'll
statute
pin it.
that vests the appointment power in the secretary and another person, the secretary needs to sign off on the ultimate appointment. If
The
these are inferior
background
officers, we
to
reject
this
that
case
premise
is
in order
pinned
for
at the top
appointment
of the
to be
chat.
constitutional.
All right.
Now,
I'm having a difficult time understanding.
Do you accept Hartwell? You just say this doesn't fall within.
This is about the
All
ACA
these
and
issues
preventive
probably should be
care.
remanded to the Fifth Circuit if
And
the court
whether or
thinks it
not-
necessary to reach this point, because number
Sorry, I don't mean to scream over them. It's whether or not the task force that is appointed to make recommendations or determine. Actually, they determine. Yeah, well, let's launder it. Oh, yeah, let's do that. this task force determines preventive care measures, what's included in preventive care as part of the Affordable Care Act. And there's a case where, of course, some assholes don't want them to make PrEP, which is the HIV medication, which literally has probably saved millions of lives. Millions of lives. They want to not include PrEP in the preventive care for the ACA because they hate themselves so much, right? So self-loathing is at the essence, and what the arguments in this Supreme Court hearing seem to be about mostly is the power of the HHS secretary, which is who? RFK Jr. The power of RFK Jr. to give power to his director or others to fire or remove members of this task force who are volunteers when they don't like a recommendation that they make or not make. So each side, the government is arguing, the DOJ, our DOJ, is arguing that the HHS director should have power to do whatever he wants. Kill bears, cut off whale heads. Who cares? Give measles to an entire country. Who cares? So they're saying he has the power to remove people, and yet they still make the argument that they should not be removed for political differences. And yet here we are talking about them being removed for political differences. So I'm still a little confused. But again, background to this is linked at the top. That was just my wacky interpretation.
Number one, the Fifth Circuit didn't resolve the question below. There's very little briefing on this issue. We barely discussed this in our brief. There's a little bit of a more robust discussion in the Solicitor General's reply brief. But
right.
Also,
it's not. It's the Nazi DOJ.
This court has said, and this court has said many times, we are a court of review, not of first view. So I don't think
did Nazis have lawyers
to rule on that question in the first instance.
I mean, I'm asking kind of seriously.
And of course, we believe it's not necessary for the court.
Did they have?
Can I ask you about your principal
did
argument?
Nazis have lawyers?
Point.
Yes.
I'm not being.
I guess one thing that I'm struggling with.
I'm actually
is,
honestly
as I was
asking.
suggesting to Mr. Mupan, your interpretation is very maximalist, and normally, as Mr. Mupan said, we try to construe statutes to avoid constitutional questions, not create them.
Right.
And I feel like there is a way, and during the colloquy with your friend on the other side, a lot of us were asking, ways that you can construe independence more narrowly. Why wouldn't we do that for the sake of constitutional avoidance? I mean, I assume you're going to say, oh, it's not plausible.
Well,
is that
that's part of the answer.
There you
It's not
go.
just
The
word
Wannsee
independence, but
Conference
it's
with
also the
lawyers.
provision that says
Okay.
that the task force members have
right.
to be protected from political
Gotcha.
pressure to the extent
Yeah, there had to be
practical.
some, right?
That is a
Nuremberg
maximalist
trials.
interpretation that's in the statute itself. That language appears there. But I think, secondly, the
Well, I
statute
don't know.
is...
I mean, to the extent practicable actually seems non-maximalist to me. It suggests that there are limits, and we understand that sometimes it's not going to be possible.
It may not be possible. You can't censor people from talking, for example. And if you really wanted to make them completely immune from political pressure, you might have to sequester them the way jurors get sequestered during a trial and not allow them to read the newspaper or something to that effect. It's not saying that we should go to
That's a
these
good
types
point.
of extreme measures. But
identifies the Holocaust was affected by the 1936 Nuremberg laws written and enforced by lawyers.
How it's construed.
Yeah,
Even
Jen,
if
they
court
are
were to
the
adopt our
lawyers.
view of the meaning of independent, there is no constitutional problem with the statute. It does not violate the Constitution for Congress to give the task force authority to make these preventive care coverage decisions as long as the President and the Senate appoint them as principal officers.
I don't mean to interrupt.
Yes, please.
That seems like the
coming
point.
From a different Article 2 direction, we usually don't interpret statutes to create independent agencies without some indication.
It's not an agency.
That's stronger than what we have here, that this is really protected from presidential.
It's a task force of experts who determine what care should entail.
Secretary had a department removal power.
I don't know how the language could be stronger, though, Justice Kavanaugh. It's not just the word independent, which is what we had in Collins against Yellen, and the court said that's not good enough to make it independent from presidential
Well, it could be
removal.
stronger if it had for-cause protection, and it could be stronger if it didn't have the phrase that Justice Kagan identified, to the extent practicable. Those are two big differences from what you would see normally with an independent agency. And normally with an independent agency, correct me if I'm wrong, the statutes usually say the president, by and with the consent of the Senate, shall appoint.
Right. And there's no
And that's usually in the statute.
It is, that's right, because it has to be in the statute, otherwise.
That's
And
the
then
movie,
says-
right? You
and
told me about this
many of
movie.
them,
I made a
although
video
not all,
about, yeah, I
say,
know.
The four
But it was
calls
more
for
like
removal
Vivek.
protection.
But anyway,
I think the reason we don't
Right,
have.
so all that's missing here.
That's true, but I think it's easy to explain why it's missing. This was initially established as a purely advisory body that had.
That was
no
a while
real powers.
ago.
So that's why they didn't initially say in the statute that the president has to appoint these people with the Senate's advice. and
No.
consent. It was
Krispy
only when
Gnome's-
the Affordable Care Act for the first.
Krispy Gnome's bag was stolen last night with her access. Are you kidding? I just want to show you what Oomph shared. This is from a month ago. You shared, or a few days ago, I guess. Oomph shared this. Hold on. Let me. I don't know why this is so big, but it's fine. Oh, I guess it's fine.
The law of the right. We make the law we need. Why am I telling you this? How many lawyers are in this room? Raise your hand.
Well, there you go. There's all the lawyers. Wow.
Oh, Jesus Christ. It's worse than I thought.
Oh, so it is all the lawyers.
The law of the right. We make the law we need. Why am I telling you this? How many lawyers are in...
Yeah, that's right. You're right. That's from the movie. What's that movie called? What was that movie called? Oh my God, I just totally lost it. Department of Bag Security. Really? Oh my God. They did have lawyers. They were given a list of approved lawyers they could hire. It was hard to find lawyers that would take their case. Oh, thank you, Jane. Thank you for that. No, not conclave. Contact. Conspiracy? I don't know. Something like that. Some C. Yeah, conspiracy. Yeah. Conclave. We got to watch Conclave again. That's what I was. Now I'm hoping that's going to happen. I told you guys, you got to watch Conclave again. All right. I'm sorry. Let's end this. Here, we'll go this.
Gave the task force real
I'll be
powers
quiet.
as officers of the United States.
Can you speak
Well,
to the
point
year?
taken as to what the history is, but still, I mean, we don't go around just creating independent agencies. More often, we destroy independent agencies.
That seems to be.
You know, the idea that we would take a statute which doesn't set up an independent agency and declare it one strikes me as pretty inconsistent with everything that we've done in this area.
In terms of construing statutes to
In terms of-
maximize presidential influence over the.
Yeah,
over
I
the
mean, that,
independent
you know,
official.
we've basically said we're not going to read something as putting restrictions
Oh,
on
well, let's
removal
fucking
power
go, Kim.
unless it
That's
puts
what I say.
restrictions
I
on
hope it
removal
ends
power.
like that.
But the problem here, it's not really a question of removal power, Justice Kagan. The test for principal officer status turns on whether the secretary can direct and supervise the decisions of these task force members. It's the question whether the
Well, why
principal-
isn't removal power enough? Suppose that there were clear at-will removal power here. I mean, we've gone to such
We
lengths
do all
to
Pope
say that
movies
that's
this
pretty much- somebody said it's not the end-all and the be-all. I think Mr. Mupan said that. And I don't know if you read this court's decisions, it seems often to be the end-all and the be-all, that the court has suggested on many occasions that removal power is really the essence of control. If you have it, you have control. If you don't have it, you don't have control. Now, as you know, I'm
Wonder what
sure,
Opus Dei's doing nowadays.
On a number of occasions, I've said that that understanding of removal power is not realistic, at least in certain
I
contexts.
tried to watch that. I
But
couldn't get into
the
it
court has
easily. I don't
said
know
it
why.
Again and again. So why doesn't it get you, if not 100% of the way there in a context like this, pretty near there?
I think that argument would have
Oh,
more
come
force if
on!
it weren't for the opinion.
Come on, Oomph.
Like if we were litigating this
Jeez.
case 10 years ago before the Arthrex opinion, I think that would have a lot of, that would be a very powerful reason to say these could be inferior officers. But if you look at the Arthrex opinion, pages 15 and 16, where Arthrex catalogs all the ways in which the PTO director can influence the decision-making of these administrative patent judges in an informal way, without the formal ability to review their decisions. And then the court says, not only is that not good enough, it actually says that aggravates the problem. This is not the solution, it is the problem, because it blurs the lines of accountability, and it undermines the
yeah,
transparency
Jane.
that the
Fuck
Appointments
yeah.
Clause is supposed to provide.
Oh,
Again,
fuck
if
yeah.
Arthrex wasn't there, I think we could have an interesting discussion about whether the test for principal officer status should be this formalistic test that Arthrex sets forth, or whether we should have more of a hard-nosed legal realist look at the actual powers that the Secretary can exert to influence the task force. But Arthrex really, I think, makes it hard for that argument to get off the ground.
Mr. Mitchell, can I ask you about the interval? Because we don't just have potential at-will
The Pope of Greenwich
removal
Village. That's a
power
good one.
here. We have something in this statute that seems to me to be fairly unusual, which is the requirement that the Secretary establish this minimal interval after the recommendation is made before
Noted Harvard art
it comes
historian.
into effect. So can you speak to why that doesn't have some indicia of secretarial control that we can look to when we try to understand the relationship between the Secretary and these members and their recommendations?
I think it has the opposite implication, Justice Jackson, because 300 GG-13 specifically addresses the Secretary's role vis-a-vis the task force. And as Justice Kavanaugh suggested earlier, it only allows the Secretary to determine when these preventive care coverage.
No, I understand, but it does so for a reason. I mean, if you're right.
And then
that
we'll
these are
end with a
principal
Bosom Buddies
officers who are
marathon.
making binding recommendations, I guess I'm struggling to understand what the point of deferring them or allowing the Secretary to intervene and defer them for at least a year. What is the point of that?
The point of that is it's very hard.
Teresa,
for insurers
really?
to
Is that
change the
true?
coverage requirements in the middle of a
Pope
plan
Francis
year.
made it that
So the
Opus
minimum
Dei
interval
couldn't
is
be
set at 1
appointed
year.
bishops?
That's the minimum. So
Ooh.
the insurance companies can plan ahead.
You're gonna be the
Congress has
Pope
done that by
channel.
statute without the Secretary being involved. They gave the Secretary some authority to establish an interval. So the Secretary is doing work.
Right.
Mr. Mupon says during that interval, the Secretary can not only delay the recommendations, but can also, in his view, take some steps as to the constitution of the task force, perhaps even in communication with them regarding those steps having been done because they made certain recommendations with respect to which the Secretary disagrees.
Hi,
So I guess
Anita.
I'm just
How are
trying-
you?
I mean,
Good
it
morning,
doesn't
dear.
necessarily suggest that really this is only.
I just learned
a
that the Pope
time-related
died. I
thing.
didn't
The
even know he
Secretary's
died
getting
yesterday.
involved. He's making
I'm still in
decisions.
shock.
Why doesn't that give us some?
And I'm starting the rumor
basis
that JD
for
killed
interpreting
him.
this to be a statute in which there is secretarial control.
But we dispute all of those claims Mr. Mupon made about what the Secretary can do.
JD
during
put
that
poison on his kid and then gave his kid to the Pope.
The task force's independence. What
Damn
Mr.
it.
Mupon is describing, where the Secretary can put pressure on the task force to pull down a previously issued A or B rating, is not consistent with the statutory guarantee.
But the statute doesn't have specific blocks, and so what I guess I'm going back to this notion of how should we be reading the statute? You dispute that the Secretary can do all of those things, but the statute doesn't say he can't. And so why would we read the statute to prevent the Secretary from exercising the control that is necessary to make it constitutional in this situation?
Because it doesn't make the statute constitutional, for all sorts of reasons. May I answer, Mr. Chief Justice? It doesn't make the statute constitutional, Justice Jackson, because number one, there's still principal officers because they have unreviewable discretion when it comes to decisions not to impose an A or B rating. Number two, even if your Honor's proposed reading of the statute makes the task force members into inferior officers, Congress has not vested the Secretary with appointment power over the task force, so they're still
I
unconstitutionally
know,
appointed.
easily.
And number three,
That's so
Your Honor's proposed
amazing.
reading of the statute still does not fix the problem that occurred from March of 2010
Oh, no,
to
Kim, I
June
haven't heard of that.
2023, when even the government acknowledges the task
Oh,
force
okay,
was
all right.
unconstitutionally appointed
I
during
just
that
didn't pay
13-year window
attention.
of time, and all the preventive care coverage
I was
mandates that
watching
were
Kitten
issued
TikToks.
during that time should not be enforceable until the task force members receive a new appointment that is constitutional and they reissue the A or B ratings
Very
in
interesting,
response to that
Teresa. It is. He
constitutional
also made it that
Thank you,
Opus
Counsel
Dei
Justice
report
Thomas.
more often money
Justice
laundering. Yes.
Would you comment on Mr. Mupon's argument that a distinction can be made under his understanding of what the Secretary can do between pressure to get rid of a recommendation and pressure to adopt a recommendation in the first place?
Any kind of pressure, Justice Alito, is incompatible in our view with the statutory guarantees of independence. I don't see how that distinction can be reconciled with the text of a statute that not only guarantees the independence of the task force members and their recommendations, but also says that the task force and their recommendations has to be immunized from political pressure to the extent practicable. I just don't see how that distinction can be squared with anything in the text of the statute. I think what Mr. Mupon is trying to do is salvage some role for 299B-4A6, because it's not plausible, I think even on the government's view, to allow the earlier enacted statutes, such as Section 202 and the reorganization plan, to completely swallow up these later enacted guarantees of independence. So they're trying to draw some line, but there's nothing in the text of the statute that can provide.
I saw that. Okay, you guys, we're going to read this in a minute, but I saw that, gal. White House assesses ways to persuade women to have more children. The fucking Handmaid's Tale is here. The Handmaid's Tale is here. He brings on guests and he allows callers to call in. Oh, I'm gonna take a look at it. I am definitely 2:00 Central Time, Monday through Friday, and it's, what was his name again? Brian Shapiro on Pushing the Limits podcast. Pushing the Limits podcast. Thank you for that. He also said abortion should not be an issue for the church, but private matter to accept LG. Yep, he did. Yeah, no, he was really the Pope. Are they going to force reverse vasectomies? Likely not. Likely not. Like, he is a Medusa. You have to use a mirror. Is that JD? Is that JD Vance, Jen? Yeah. So anyway, hey, ladies. Yikes. Yikes. Well, he was the most progressive pope we've had in a while. So yeah, it is actually a tragedy that he passed. I'm very sad that he passed. And I know that it's big. Hi, Lee. Yes, no problem. If you do a call-in, will you be streaming it? Yeah, I want to do a call-in show, actually. I really do want to do a call-in show. I've been Googling or searching for how to get a phone number and all that stuff. I don't know how to do it yet, but I'll figure it out. Charles Schwab resigns from the WEC after making $900 million through tariffs. I'm so disappointed in him. They are going to put erectile dysfunction meds in Easter eggs. Really? Chuck resigned from the WEF? You know what? He wasn't very good at it anyway. No. Old enough to remember rallying lunatics brandishing sample containers purporting to contain JD's ejaculate. Oh my God. Okay, here, well, let's finish this one out.
Provide an anchor for the distinction that he's trying to draw.
Suppose it is ultimately decided that the statute implicitly confers the appointment power on the secretary, and that then how much more of the statute would have to be jettisoned in order to make it constitutional?
I don't think
the setup constitutional.
Yeah. None of the statute needs to be jettisoned in order to make it constitutional, even under our reading of the statute. If the court decides that Congress has vested the secretary with appointment power over the task force, the appointments are still unconstitutional in our view because they're principal officers. They have to be appointed by the president and the Senate no matter what. But if the court even rejects that view, there's still the problem that the task force was appointed by the AHRQ director for 13 years.
Yeah, the article doesn't say how the children will be supported.
2023, and there has to be some remedy issued for those admitted constitutional violations.
So that would be for what was done before Secretary Becerra. What about going forward? What would need to be done?
Going forward, it will depend on whether the court thinks these are principal officers. If the court thinks they're principal officers, then they have to be appointed by the president and the Senate.
Suppose we thought that they were inferior.
Yeah, big, beautiful new jobs in the mind.
There should be a remand, in our view, to the Fifth Circuit to rule on the question whether Congress has vested the Secretary of Health and Human Services with appointment power. I don't think it's appropriate for the court to decide that issue based on how cursory the briefing is.
Well, suppose we do that, the Fifth Circuit goes back and says that, or we tackle the question.
Do we trade with the Holy See?
The appointment power in the Secretary. Then what?
Then there has to be some remedy.
That's what I'm asking.
The remedy would have to be an injunction that
I guess we wouldn't really trade with them
from enforcing any of the task force coverage recommendations that issued between March of 2010 and June of 2023. Even the government concedes the task force was unconstitutionally appointed during that time. So I don't see how the government can deny that we're entitled to at least that much.
And what would be the remedy going
You're not
forward?
my baby girl. Thanks,
If the
Gal.
remedy going forward, if the court concludes that they're inferior
Oh,
officers
my
and that the
daughter's in
secretary's been
Leslie. I
vested
love
with appointment
her.
power, there
I
should be no
love
remedy
her.
going forward. We only can get a remedy for those past that 13-year window.
Thank you.
Mr. Sotomayor?
Can look this up later, but I
From the
thought
Holy
that at a
See, though?
certain
I don't know.
point, the secretary
Blessings?
had issued
Do we
something
import
saying
blessings?
that he was accepting.
He did.
Yeah,
He
force
did.
the reverse
So why
vasectomy.
do we need a
And make
remedy
them
if
public, Jane. Let's have everybody do their
questioning that he
reverse
was entitled
vasectomies
to
in
do that?
public.
Oh, we absolutely are questioning that he's entitled to
Well,
do
What do you
that.
think?
For the
Fifth
same
Circuit-
grounds, but
Like
if we
a
say
pay-per-view.
that they're
Tariff
inferior
the Pope.
officers, that
Right. So here's why that doesn't work. This is the ratification memo. It appears on pages 34 to 35A.
Their coal mines are
of the
played
Joint
out.
Appendix.
Yeah, this
Fifth
isn't
Circuit
TV.
specifically held that Secretary Becerra had no authority to issue that ratification memo. That's on pages 27A
Is that
and 28A
because
of the petition.
This is
Because
definitely
he has no
TV.
authority to impose preventive care coverage mandates.
Prayer
Only the
beads?
task
I
force can
know.
do that.
Orange, hi, baby.
The government did not
How
seek
are you?
certiorari on that question. They have not asked, and they
I
are
assume
not
there's
asking
nothing
this
about the
court to
toll it takes on
reverse
women's
that part of
bodies.
the
I know, I
Fifth
keep
Circuit's ruling,
talking
so that
over
is a
this. I'm
closed
so
issue.
sorry.
Even if it were
then I'm
properly,
going to let the SG
All right.
answer that. Okay,
but
thank you.
even if it were properly before this court, that document is invalid because the Fifth Circuit's right, Secretary Becerra doesn't have the authority, but even if he did, that needs to go through notice and comment rulemaking because it's a substantive rule, it's a legislative rule that imposes binding obligations on private insurers, and it's implementing delegated authority that's been given to one of the agencies in the federal government. So it has to go through notice and comment under Section 553, and it didn't.
I'm good. I'm happy to be back.
It does seem, Mr. Mitchell, as though, putting aside the vesting issue for now, that your argument really does rise and fall on how we read that independence language. And, you know, just an alternative view of that language is something along the lines of, look, the members of this task force are going to be subject to some kinds of influence because somebody can remove them, and also because they're subject to supervision. But we want them to approach their jobs with a spirit of independentness.
All right.
And also, Congress is saying to the people who, you know, who do supervise and who have discharge powers over them, you too should think about the fact that this system works best if the task force members are treated as independent. But it's hortatory. It's not saying that nobody can fire them. It's not saying that nobody can supervise them.
Right.
And nobody can, you know, prevent their recommendations from going forward. It's hortatory. So why shouldn't I read the statute that way?
Even if Your Honor reads the statute that way, there's still principal officers under Arthrex. Because under that view that Your Honor is describing of independence, there's no authority in the Secretary to formally review and formally reverse the decisions the task force is making in either direction. And that's what Arthrex says is key. There may be informal ways the Secretary can influence the task force, such as removal or threatened removal or other types of tactics. But Arthrex discusses all of these types of informal means of influence. Again, pages 15 and 16 of the appendix.
Okay,
And
so
it says
then I'm
that's not
going
good
to
enough.
say, then your argument depends on a pretty aggressive read of Arthrex. Because I thought Arthrex said, we're dealing here with adjudicators, we're not dealing with every circumstance, every scenario. You know, we're dealing here with a particular kind of officer.
I don't think that's an aggressive reading at all, because Arthrex says the touchstone for principal officer status is whether there is formal review available of the relevant official's decision-making. And even under the government's construction of the statutes, the only formal review that they're providing is formal review of an affirmative decision by the task force to issue an A or B rating. They admit that the Secretary can't reverse the task force if it makes a decision in the opposite direction, a decision not to impose an A or B rating. I mean, that alone is enough to make them principal officers, even under the SG's view, and even under Your Honor's proposed interpretation of the word independent. At the end of the day, when you go back to Section 300GG-13A1, it is the task force recommendation that matters. That is what is binding on insurers. It is not the Secretary's decision that can bind insurers. So even if the Secretary were to say, I hereby disapprove this task force recommendation, that's useless when it comes to Section 300GG-13A1, because what matters is what the task force says. It's not what the Secretary says.
Thank you.
Justice Gorsuch?
If I understood your exchange with
All
Justice
right.
Sotomayor,
We're going to go ahead and end that here because we listened to most of it. I apologize, but I know we have a lot more we want to read, so I want to get into that. I love all the hellos. We're all back. We're back. We're back. We're back. We're back. We're back. So I'll obviously link this so you can hear all the great details. And remember, at the pin top is the background on the SCOTUS case that we were just listening to. I thought it was about books, LGBTQ books and things, but apparently it's not. It was about this task force and their recommendations for the ACA to allow or to include PrEP, the HIV preventive medicine, as part of preventive care in the Affordable Care Act. So that's being challenged so that people can't get access to very much life-saving care. I don't know the statistics on PrEP, but I believe that it is actually so pervasive in protecting the community, the LGBTQ community from HIV infection. It has become a very important part of that community, and it would make me sick to think that this fucking administration has power to override doctors who comprise the task force, experts, and just make a political decision about life-saving care. I don't even want to think about what will happen if that access is cut off or made expensive. And it's bullshit. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. Okay, here we go. Volvo Group North America confirmed to ABC 227 the 250 to 350 will be laid off from Mack Trucks plant in Macungie near Allentown, along with 50 to 100 people from the Volvo Mack powertrain plant in Hagerstown, Maryland. Hagerstown. This administration did enough. Yes, dismantling USAID. I mean, people are dying because of this administration right now. Oh, thank you for the link. Gal has a link to the layoffs that are happening in the auto industry. Fucked Financial Fridays. We're definitely going to talk about what's happening and get caught up on the financial news of the impact of this administration. I just had my mandatory covered annual lung cancer screening last week. Lung cancer free. See you next year. Maybe. I hope so. I really hope that this madness is turned around. Oh, wait. One more bit about prediction. Netanyahu will be removed and face legal consequences for his dealing with Trump delaying ceasefire much earlier during election per Trump request. Yep. So that's part of the predictions of the Pope dying, then Trump dying. Where did it come from? Is that a Simpsons thing? Yeah. I don't know. I won't be getting those if I have to pay for a CAT scan. I know, Max. These things are so critically important. I can't even tell you. I can't fucking even tell you. Yeah, the good old days when the GOP just crashed SNL's savings and loans. That's right. Remember that scandal? Well, that was also a Democrat was part of that. Lloyd Benson. Remember him? Oh my God, that name came from nowhere. That name came out of nowhere. Okay, so I want to read this article. I found this too, gal, and I was just like, oh my God, Becky. Did you see how big her butt was? So this is fucking ridiculous. Shit. Hold on. Sorry. Where am I? Oh my God, you guys. I was in a bookstore and I was wearing my Abolish ICE t-shirt, and the guy who worked in the bookstore, he's like this huge hippie guy. He's like, "Oh, that's a great shirt." And I'm like, "Yeah, thanks." And then we started talking about politics, and he was like, "Have you heard of the butterfly revolution?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, are you kidding me? What do you mean, have I heard of it? Curtis Yarvin, blah, blah, blah. It was great to meet someone in the wild who knew who Curtis Yarvin was. That was really exciting. That was great. Yeah, congratulations, Max. I hope everything keeps going well. I'm so disappointed. If I just can't tell you how much I've seen preventive care help people over the last year, over the last few months. You know, like you're saving people's lives with some of these screenings, and it's just fucking amazing to me. Anyway. Let's see. Lolo. Now I know why a neighbor asked me about it. He has no use for PrEP, but had a lot of questions. Fox News, I presume. Questions were weird. Interesting, Oren. Ah, God. I mean, really. Yeah, they've been, Oren, they've been crashing the economy since 1972. That's right. Bringing you great destruction since 1972. I have a bruised rib. Oh my God. Jen, what happened? Are you okay? Yeah, who did it? Point him out to me. Let me at him. Tom, they've been, okay, since 1929. Yeah, that's a good point, Oren. It was a tarot reading, but he got Pope at Easter right. Okay, Jane, I'm in. I'm all in. I'm all in with the reading. I'm 2 feet down. Toes pointed out. Mary said she tries to tell people about Butterfly Revolution and people look at her like she's crazy. I know. That's why I was like, oh my God, you know who Curtis Yarvin is too? I didn't feel crazy for a minute. I know. I was like, what? I'm not the crazy. I mean, I am the crazy one, but still. No explaining to a 70-year-old man how PrEP works and why do they want to get the viral load down. I mean, it's just changed the game in HIV. All right, Kim. Have fun at Tony's. Have a great day. Hope to see many of you. 2 p.m. on PTL. Pushing the Limits pod, right? With Brian Shapiro. Thanks for that recommendation again. I really appreciate it. Saw someone say they accused Abrego of having cash when he was detained, MS-13. And, well, oh, whoops. Okay. This is good. Uh-oh. Boom. Oh, you're kidding me. They're doing that? They're making that jump? I hope not. Homeland Security Secretary Krispy Gnome's bag, including $3,000 in cash. Why is she carrying $3,000 in cash? Is she a drug dealer? Why is she carrying around $3,000 in cash? Yeah. Why does she have $3,000 in cash? Why? Why would she be carrying that? From a DC restaurant? What's she doing going out to eat? Oh, yeah. Okay. So the Butterfly Revolution, we'll talk a little bit about it on Friday, but it's a, gang member, obviously. So the Butterfly Revolution is Curtis Yarvin, and he's this weird guy who some of these guys like Elmo and Peter Thiel think of as a bit of a guru about how government should look, maybe. And he advocates for a monarchy. That's right. Curtis Yarvin in the Butterfly Revolution proposes monarchy, basically. And lays out a plan for how to destroy government. Yeah. So that's what the Butterfly Revolution is like not it's dismantling federal government and reshaping it in your own image. Kind of. All right, so there she is. Oh, look at the Amazon hair and the pouty lip. Oh. Department of Homeland Security, blah, blah, Krispy Gnome fell victim to a thief while eating dinner at a downtown Washington, D.C. restaurant Sunday night. Gnome, who was asked about the theft at the White House Easter egg roll, acknowledged the incident and said the matter has not been resolved. Yes, a CEO monarchy, yes. Robber barons, if you will. The Secret Service, which provides security, reviewed security camera footage at the restaurant and saw an unknown white male wearing a medical mask steal her bag and leave the restaurant. What was her bag doing? What? What was her bag doing away from her, away from all the people that probably follow her? I don't get it. The thief got medication? What kind of medication? Yeah, she pays Corey for the D. The thief got away with her driver's license, medication, apartment keys, passport, DHS access bag, makeup bag, blank checks, and about $3,000 in cash. What the fuck? What in the fuck? Yes, we have that really good. Thank you, Max. The Blonde Politics. That channel is really good. Okay, well, the Secret Service has launched an investigation. Was anybody standing near the bag? I don't even get it. Oh no, Jen, they shipped Rudy off to Eastern Europe. Oh no, I think Rudy might be encountering a window sometime soon. I'm not kidding. I really feel that. I feel like they've sent him on a 3-hour tour to Eastern Europe only to find the nearest window. I'm not predicting. I'm just saying. It sounds like Dorrit. It sounds like yeah, Dorit took it. Real Housewives reference. Sorry. Wow. Okay, I got a lot of stuff here. Okay. Wait, where's our thing? Where is our thing? Oh, here we go. So this bullshit. I have kids and I don't have all that in my purse. I know. Who carried and 5 dildos? Good one, Jen. I want to know what the medication is. That's what I want to know. What's your medication? Yeah, she's ready to go on the lam. I know. Who carries all of that? Yeah, here we go. I don't know about you guys, but as a postmenopausal woman, I'm going to the quarries. I'm going to go fuck it up in the quarries. Both Gal and I freaked out at this story. White House assesses ways to persuade women to have more children. Easter is a great day to go on the lam. Oh my God. Who posted the Good Technocrat article on Discord? Adriana. I don't remember. I have to find that. I'm so behind. From your lip to Kremlin hands. Oops, did I say that out loud? I mean, I'm just saying. Why'd they send him over to Eastern Europe? You know what I'm saying? Oh, look for yesterday's? Okay, I'll do that. I'll find it. Oh my God. Okay, we need to channel the Maha spirit and really dive deep into infertility, said Emma Waters, a policy analyst and cunt at the Heritage Foundation, referring to RFK Jr.'s Make America Healthy Again campaign. That's right. Hey girls, baby bonuses and menstrual cycle classes are among the ideas pitched to Trump aides as they consider plans to try and boost the birth rate. Was she in the potty? Was she pooping? Maybe she was pooping and the purse was left there. I don't know. That could happen. But isn't somebody watching? Did everybody go poop with her? I can't. She probably got drunk and left it. Her dead puppy ran off with the bag. The way to encourage more women to have babies is implement democratic principles that create safe and free healthcare, better wages, no trade wars, and all the opposite of what this administration is frankly doing. And to provide, access to childcare that allows you to actually raise that child, okay? Because without childcare, nothing happens, okay? Nothing happens without childcare, period. Or the ability to work from home. And even then, you can't take care of your child and better men. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Was it a money drop and bag? Oh, was it? Maybe it was just a botched ransom drop off. Yeah. There are already too many people. Thank you, Max. There's too many. And only the dumbest ones are going to procreate. Oh my God. Damn it. Damn it. It was really a dead drop. All right, here we go. The White House has been hearing out a chorus of ideas in recent weeks for persuading Americans to get married and have more children. An early sign that I'm baiting. Get out, I'm baiting. That's what we need. We need more masturbation in this country. If we had more masturbation in this country, I think everybody would be a lot calmer. I'm just saying. I'm a huge advocate. No, peace, love. Oh my God. Yeah, it is like that scene in Idiocracy where they have how many children did the dumb people have and how many children did the smart people couldn't have any children or something like, I don't even know. Okay, the White House has been hearing out a chorus of ideas in recent weeks for persuading Americans to get married and have more children, an early sign that the Trump administration will embrace a new cultural agenda. Is that what we're calling it now? A new cultural agenda? Oh, okay. Interesting words. Interesting word choice. Pushed by many of its allies on the right to reverse declining birth rates and push conservative family values. One proposal shared with aides would reserve 30% of scholarships for the Fulbright program. I'm so sorry. Yeah, exactly, Tom. There's two types of people, those who masturbate and liars. Exactly. Counteroffer. Get Elmo and Trump and Palantir, Greasy Guy, and the rest of them on the planet. And we'll consider more. Hey, make the men less unfuckable. How about that? Okay? Why don't you make men less unfuckable? And then maybe people would have more children. No, that's not. Which declining birth rates? Yes, I agree with that, Oomph. I was asking myself my question in the head. So tell me about the declining birth rates, because I'd like to see the data behind that. I know, Oren. I'm sorry. Are they going to lower the tax for married people? I've heard it's cheaper not to be married. That's not true. Filing married is actually cheaper than like head of household. Trust me, I had to file head of household for many, many years, and it frankly was very expensive. So being single is more expensive, I think. Already. Yeah. Are they going to lower the, yeah, okay. I was trying, okay. Okay, one proposal. Okay, so they would reserve 30% of the scholarships for the Fulbright program. That's right, the prestigious government-backed international fellowship for applicants who are married or have children. Another would give $5,000 cash baby bonus to every American mother after delivery. Well, I mean, I think that women should get money like they do in, what is it, Norway? Was it Norway? They, yeah, that sounds like DEI. It does, doesn't it? Isn't like one of those Scandinavian countries, don't they give like a baby box after you give birth, and it gives you like essentials and money and shit like that? I thought maybe, right? No. Yeah, another would give that bonus. Okay, a third calls on the government to fund programs that educate women on their menstrual cycles. In part, so they can better understand when they are ovulating and able to conceive. That might be one of the most disgusting things I've ever read. And I've read a lot of disgusting things. Yeah, France has great postnatal care support as well as visiting nurses, right? Lactation support, postpartum depression support, all of those things. Yes, dump the fertility tracker or your menstrual cycle apps. Just get rid of them. I'm sorry. I'm going to say it. I'm just going to say it. Get rid of them. Stop. Yes, I will definitely. I will definitely give. This is a gift link, I think. We'll see. We'll see. If not, I'll share the non-paywall article. Go over here and let me go over there. Baby article. The babies have babies. Babies article. Okay. There's the Bubba's article. I think that'll work. My colleagues in Germany have up to 1 year off and their job is waiting for them to return. Yep, Lee. That's right. That's right. Yeah, thank you, Jane. The natural method. These people are weird and intrusive. Period. Period. Same in Canada? Oh, man. Oh, those ideas and others are emerging from a movement concerned with declining birth rates that has been gaining steam for years and now finally has allies in the U.S. administration, including VP J.D. Vance, who is the Pope killer. That's my new name for him, by the way. I hope it catches on. Pope killer. We have poop hands, and now we have Pope killer. And Elon. Policy experts and advocates of boosting the birth rate have been meeting with White House aides, sometimes handing over written proposals on ways to help or convince women to have more babies, according to 4 people who have been part of the meetings who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss private conversations. Administration officials have not indicated what ideas, if any, this is the dumbest article I've ever read, they might ultimately embrace. Gosh, I don't know. What could they possibly? I don't know. But advocates express confidence that fertility issues will become a prominent piece of the agenda, noting that President Trump has called for a baby boom and pointing to symbolic power of seeing Mr. Vance and other top officials attend public events with their children. Yes, that's such an interesting way to describe what the way he talks about it is. I just think this administration is inherently pro-natalist. You think? Said activist Simone Collins, referring to the movement to reverse declining birth rates. Ms. Collins, along with her husband, Malcolm Collins, sent the White House several draft executive orders, including one that would bestow a National Medal of Motherhood to mothers with 6 or more children. Look at the number of kids that the major leaders in the administration have. Ms. Collins said, adding, "You didn't hear about kids in the same way under Biden." The behind-the-scenes discussions about family policy suggest Mr. Trump is quietly building an ambitious plan to promote the issue, even as he focuses much of his attention on higher profile priorities, like killing the global economy, creating crimes against humanity. Yeah. Yeah, we heard about Biden's kids. Oh my God. You guys are funnier than I am, and I absolutely hate it. Can I tell you? I absolutely hate it. Remember when Kavanaugh had immigrant women period cycles watched in detention? I didn't remember that. Do you remember when they had forced sterilization? Why wasn't that a bigger story? Guess who wouldn't qualify? Kegsess third wife, pig's breath. Yeah. Medals for Motherhood doesn't sound cultish at all. No, it's Handmaid's Tale. Maybe not today, but maybe tomorrow. The behind the scenes, okay, he's doing to promote the issue, even as he focuses on federal cuts, tariffs, and mass kidnappings. They're not deportations, they're kidnappings. I know. This is like the writer's room. That's what we should call this. The writer's room. Hi, Val. How are you, darling? Yeah. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. Project 2025. Remember that? The policy blueprint that has forecast much of Trump's agenda so far. You think it forecast it, or do you think it was it? Bitch. My God. Discusses family issues before anything else, opening its first chapter with the promise to restore the family as the centerpiece of American life. That's right. That's right, you singletons. Come on now. Us singletons have to get on board. Yeah, that's right. Peace love. Tom says, I worked with a guy for a few months. He would watch the good-looking female exercise videos at lunch. He had kid number 6 at the end of the last job. Oh my God. My God. But first Pope, I know. I didn't even know he died. But I think J.D. Vance killed him. We're calling J.D. Vance the Pope Killer now, Val. Pass it on. I hope the medal features a ragged old uterus. Oh, it should be shaped in the shape of a uterus. You know? Like, come on. Yeah, okay, listen. Not one, Jim Nalgren, you're right. And guess what? There is a rumor, quite well founded, that he engineered all his children to be male. One of his baby mamas has said that he has engineered his children to all be male. Bye, Oren. Love you, darling. It's so good to see you again. I'll see you later on or tomorrow or in Discord. Wait, to facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego, this trip is not being financed by taxpayer dollars? Who said that? Oh, Democratic reps Garcia, Maxwell Frost, Yasemin Ansari, and Maxine Dexter have arrived in El Salvador to pressure the Trump administration to abide by the Supreme Court order. Oh, what is that? Gal, what do we got? Oh, MSNBC is getting sued about forced sterilization, so that was not true. Thank you, Teresa, for that. I wondered why it hadn't gotten more traction if it was an accurate reporting, but I hadn't seen any specific reporting on it. So, all right, good to know. Good to know. All right. So, in contrast to the intense emphasis on cost cutting so far during Trump's second term, this focus on families could result in spending more money to back a new set of priorities. Caroline said in a statement that Trump is proudly implementing policies to uplift American families. I love Maxwell Frost. I love the new Democrats, like the younger Democrats, I think are fucking fantastic. I'm so happy about AOC and Bernie doing their barnstorming tour. I love that. I love all of it. The more, the better. The more voices, the more strong voices, the better. Jasmine, everybody. There's some really great from the Mid-Atlantic, like from Maryland. There's some fantastic representatives, and like yeah, really, I'm proud of some of them. They're really standing up. Hakeem could take a lesson from them, and I like Hakeem Jeffries, but he is definitely not stepping into the role that he could really step into, at least publicly. I don't know what he does behind the scenes, but I don't know. The president wants America to be a country where all children can safely, all white children, that's what I meant to say, can safely grow up and achieve the American dream, she added. As a mother myself, I'm proud to work for a president who is taking significant action to leave a better country for the next generation of white people. Of people. Mr. Trump, Mr. Vance, and Musk have cultivated the movement by publicly highlighting issues related to family policy and pronatalism, both in the lead up to the election and since Mr. Dump took office. Speaking to a crowd in January at the March for Life and anti-abortion rally, Mr. Vance said he wanted more babies in the United States of America and more beautiful young men and women, preferably white, to raise them. Yeah, I mean, we need new. We need young. We need new. Last month, Mr. Trump pledged to be the fertilization president. If any man could cause you to close your legs faster, I don't know if one exists, but I'll tell you right now, there's some reason to close your legs right there. I'll tell you right now. Ladies, if you needed any incentive to stop the madness, this one might be it. The coalition of people who want to see more babies born is broad and diverse. They are unified in their concerns about the U.S. birth rate. Okay, here we go, which has been falling since 2007. I want to see what that actually looks like. What is that? Vital statistics, blah, blah, blah. Provisional data for 2023. Well, this is April 2024. Why does it not let me just like... All right. Okay, great. Okay, here we go. Get that. Okay. So this is the federal, this is data. Blar, blar, blar. Okay, where's the summary? Come on, bitch. Okay, here's the chart. All right, here we go. Number of live births and general fertility rates, United States final 2000 to 2022, and provisional data from 2023 included. So the green is the number of births, and the rate per 1,000 females aged 15 to 44. Oh, I guess that's childbearing years. Okay, wait. So this is the fertility rate? How do they measure that? Okay, so these are the live births, this green. Can you see? Yeah, green. And they've gone, so this is from 2000, starts down here, 2000. So over the last 23 years, the birth rate has declined and the fertility rate has declined. I don't know how they determined fertility rate, though. Data are based on more than 99% of all 2023 birth records. Okay, wait, but I want to see where you, tell me where you, the provisional number of births for the United States in 2023 was 3.6 million, down 2% from 2022. The general fertility rate, was 54.4 births per 1,000 females. Okay. So births per females is the fertility rate. Okay. And the total fertility rate was 1,600 per one. Wait, what? The fertility rate was 1,616.5 births per 1,000 women in 2023, a decline of 2%. Birth rates declined for females in age groups 15 to 19 through 35 and 39 were unchanged. Sentence structure. Birth rates declined for females in age groups 15 to 19 through 35 and 39. Okay, so they declined for teenagers and the 35 to 39-year-olds and were unchanged for females 10 to 14. And for women, those aren't females, those are children. And for women ages 40 to 44 and 45 to 49. So they're unchanged for the children and for the 40 to 49. The birth rate for teenagers aged 15 to 19 declined by 3%, which is actually a good thing. I don't know if that to me seems like a positive. I don't know. To 13.2 births per 1,000 females, and the rate for younger teenagers was unchanged, and the rate for older teenagers declined. Okay, that's all kind of good news to me. The cesarean delivery rate rose to 32.4% from, okay, so that's minor. Okay, so it basically is, I don't know. I don't feel like that's that serious. Am I wrong? So not measuring the motility of the little guys. Yeah, no, I guess we're not doing that. It's just about the women. I guess they don't need to get around if you're going to inject them straight into the ovum. Yeah, exactly. There's not a lot of foreplay involved in that. So less young people are having babies. So what do they want? Yeah, I think, okay, peace, love. I mean, I think they're looking at a general rate of decline, and they're also wanting more white babies. More white babies. More white babies. Okay, well, at least we know what the actual statistics say, and frankly, I'm not as impressed as I was that the birth rate is down. It seems to be down for good in terms of how we help young children not have to experience childbirth and child care. Okay, that seems like a good thing. I'm sorry. I feel like that's actually a success in helping educate women on their vaginal health. Okay, That's what it feels like to me. It feels like we've done a better job in the last 20 years. We've done a better job in the last 20 years of educating young people about vaginal health and family planning, or safe sex. Right? Like, I don't know. That's what I think. Okay. Also, I missed this. Musk called his offspring his legion. That makes a ton of sense. David Hogg is primarying other Dems. I'm not really sure what's going on. I haven't checked David Hogg's news recently. I also read an interesting article about Carolyn Levitt's campaign finance problems from when she first ran an office in New Hampshire. Okay, listen, Jim, I fucking got on her right as they got into office. I got on her about her stuff in New Hampshire. I fucking knew something was sick about that. Oh my God. I knew it. Yeah, JD Vance. Yeah, absolutely peace love. He's like gross. His dad had 2 kids with his own stepdaughter. Who was that? Which one? Which one was that? Oh no, that's Elon. Yes, Elon's father. Wait, what was it? His grandfather or father? Where's Jen's comment? Shoot, now I lost it. Oh, his dad. Yeah, Elon's dad had 2 kids with his own stepdaughter. That's right. Ugh. Ugh. Or do they want more old people having babies, but yet they want to take away in vitro fertilization? Oh, I don't think they want to take in vitro fertilization away. Absolutely not, peace love. Some of those folks really depend on that. I would be loath, to say that they want it. That more babies, more better. Hogg's spending $20 million to primary Dems. Why? The Daily Beast guy has been all over that and Corey Mills. We need to do a show on Corey Mills. Yes. Why? Why is David Hogg doing that? Is there a good reason? Yeah. Isn't that interesting? I mean, I'm interested in that data because that's a little different spin on that. Warning of a future which a smaller workforce cannot support an aging population and the social safety net. Is it all that? I think it's other things too. Not progressive enough. I don't know. I mean, I hope it's the right I hope it's the right people. I hope it's the right people. Yeah. Yeah, and I think to Max's point, going back to this birth rate thing, what policies will be engineered to do, I believe, to that point, is support more white babies, right? So the creation of white babies will end up getting more support than it will for other demographics, right? And they can do that through policy making, through allocation of funds to red states. I mean, they could do a whole shit ton of really bad things. So yeah, I have no doubt in my mind, and that's why it'd be really interesting to look at the declining birth rates among, Caucasian, etc., and see, because that'll be the way they do it. They don't have to say it. They don't have to say white babies. There's not enough white babies. They can just do policies that enforce help only for white babies. They're so good at that. Ugh. Yeah. Oh, let me see what this is. Hold on. We got a meme. I'm human. Oh, I can't. Oh my God. You want to know what just happened, gal? I'm still stuck on. I'm kicked off Twitter. Because I won't remove these posts. Oh my God. This is a turn of phrase. Okay, this is not a threat. This isn't violent speech. This is a turn of phrase. I'm not removing it. Go fuck yourselves. Oh my God. Interesting thought, Lolo. They could definitely do that just by alligator. Yeah, right. Allocating stuff to certain areas of the country. Exactly. Peace, love. They can. Is in Signal. Okay, the meme's in Signal. All right. I'm sorry. I think that's funny. I can't bring myself to delete them. Okay? I probably could delete them and then just like, whatever. I don't want to. Wait, where is it? I killed Oh my God. Hold on. I gotta show this. Hold on. Oh, I gotta wait. Where's that? Hold on. I'm sorry. I'll show you in a minute. Okay. Oh, whoops. Not that. Here we go. I fucking love that. I knew what you meant, peace, love. Sean Duffy has always proposed that. Oh no. Oh my God. Hold my beer. That is fucking awesome. Oh my God. That's too much. All right. Here we go. Now we're getting into the meat of the matter. Many in the movement have different reasons for wanting people to have more kids and often disagree on how to get there. It's just the old Kavanaugh's beer. Oh, God. Oh, and then Cake Seth comes in and says, "What about my beer?" Oh my God. Many Christian conservatives see declining birth and marriage rates as a cultural crisis. That's right. We're calling it a cultural crisis because it sounds nicer than racism. What? Oh my God. Okay. As a cultural crisis brought on by forces in politics and the media that they say belittle the traditional family, encouraging women to prioritize work over children. They are pushing for more committed marriages and large families, while some who identify strictly as pronatalists are interested in exploring a variety of methods, including new reproductive technologies to reach their goal of more babies. Oh, great. We're going to have a bunch of like Peapod people. That's what it's going to be. Anyone see the Help Wanted ad for farm workers pays $14 an hour? It should say, oh, wait. Really? Transportation Department, isn't that a sideways? Isn't it, Peace Love? What? He has no business. He's busy crashing planes. Okay? Mr. Duffy should focus on not crashing any more planes. That's what he needs to focus on. Okay? That's what I got to tell him. Pronatalism strictly speaks to having more babies, said Emma Waters, a policy analyst at the Heritage Foundation, the conservative think tank. Yes, Miss Waters, who says she is concerned about the birth rate but does not identify as a pronatalist, added, "Our ultimate goal is not just more babies, but more families formed." Right. I am going to fight it, Val. I am going to fight it. Some administration leaders have already begun enacting policies that promote larger families, most notably Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, there you go, who is father of 9. Ugh. and has 10 siblings, published a memo this year pledging to prioritize transportation funding in areas with higher than average birth and marriage rates. What? What? Several analysts within the department say the policy could result in less money for large urban transit and more for highways and car share services in rural areas. It's not just one person we need to get rid of. It's everyone. The next major development on these issues is widely expected to come directly from the White House. Trump aides are preparing a highly anticipated report to be released no later than mid-May, recommending ways to make in vitro fertilization more readily available and affordable. Whoop, whoop. There you go. See, he loves it. Bring it on. They learned their lesson the hard way when the Alabama Supreme Court inadvertently made an anti-abortion ruling that impacted the ability to get IVF in that state. Oopsie. Oopsie. So the White House pledged to produce the document in a February executive order reaffirming the president's commitments to lowering the cost of IVF. Discussions about what should be contained in the report have highlighted divisions within the pro-family and pro-natalist movement. Is there really a difference? I hate them both. Okay? I know I will. Max, this might be the end of my career at Twitter. Let's see. Have highlighted divisions within the pro-family and pro-natalist movement, according to several advocates involved in the conversations. While some in the movement, including Mr. Musk, who has fathered multiple children through IVF and are extremely supportive of IVF, many anti-abortion Christian conservatives have serious misgivings about the procedure, which fertilizes a woman's egg outside the body and often leads to the loss of human embryos. Oopsie poopsie. The Trump administration is, quote, listening to a lot of different ideas and soliciting input on all of this, said Lyman Stone, who is the director of the Pro-Natalism Initiative at the Institute for Family Studies and has pitched several policy ideas to the White House. I think they're still having a conversation about what they want to do. The most ambitious plans for family formation will not materialize right away. Many movement leaders have said, no, they know better. That is partially because while other countries have tried a variety of approaches, it's not yet clear what kind of policies will best incentivize people to have more babies, or whether those kinds of policy incentives are effective at all. Many ideas, like an expanded child tax credit or a baby bonus, would require an act of Congress. Or would it? I mean, come on. The Heritage Foundation has been researching the question for over 2 years and is preparing to release a report in the coming weeks on how it believes the administration and Congress should counter declining birth and marriage rates, said Jay Richards, the director of the foundation's DeVos Center for Life, Religion, and Family. That's right, Betsy DeVos. That's right. Eric Prince's sister. Yes, that one. The newest and boldest idea, is that what we're calling it now, Mr. Richards said, is a policy plan that offers tax credits to married couples with children in which families receive more money back from the government for each additional child that they have. Oh, what could go wrong? I don't know. Something. Heritage has also been prominent in efforts to shape what the White House might do on infertility and IVF. The group, which heralds its commitment to protecting the unborn, is skeptical of the procedure. Leaders at Heritage hope the administration will take a broader approach to combating infertility in line with the MAHA movement, largely led by Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the health secretary. The idea, called restorative reproductive medicine, revolves around treating the root causes of infertility and leaving IVF as a last resort. Isn't that what we do now? We don't do that now? I think we do that already. If the executive's goal, we need to channel the Maha spirit and really dive deep into infertility, said Miss Waters, who recently co-wrote a Heritage report on infertility. Oh, I can't wait to read that. If the executive order's goal is to increase access to infertility care and keep costs down, the solution is not to push IVF for everyone, but but without experts, because we'll fire them if they recommend any kind of prenatal care that doesn't align with our culture war. Yeah, Emma, fuck off. Okay, just go fuck yourself. Ms. Waters has proposed directing the National Institutes of Health to expand its study of infertility and reproductive health conditions, including endometriosis. She has also proposed using government funds to promote programs that educate women on their menstrual cycles and their natural fertility, such as cycle charting courses that many conservative Christian women use to try to prevent pregnancy without using birth control because they're fucking hoes. Oh, whoops. They want to know when they can get it on without getting it on. I just need to. She's drinking a cup of tea, sitting in her peasant blouse, with the soft light just hitting that little side of her little face, and she's got the bust. You know, it's kind of like enticing to have these little ties here. They could simply be untied and let her bountiful bosom spill forth. Spill forth, Emma, spill forth on your bountiful bosom. Untie your peasant dress and yield to me. What happened? Hold on. Hold on. That's right, bountiful bosoms. Okay, we're coming back. Hold on. Oh my God. Okay, now I think we're back. Oops, we're not back. Hold on. Let me get us back. It's going to take a minute. Oh, it keeps. Oh. 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 Wonder why that does that. Wonder why that does that. Oh. My board just like turns off. That's kind of weird. Do 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 do. More problems. Okay, are you stable? Are you calm? Please don't just shit the bed. I don't know why you would be doing that. Okay. We're going to try and get through this. Okay, hold on. Okay. So, anyway, these kinds of programs could both help women. Oh, are you out, peace love? See you later, darling. See you. Maybe sure. And they want to ban porn. Exactly. Yeah, they're already removing fluoride from the water. We're going to be like 18th century England again. Why? Who wants that? Why go backwards? Yes, come for the bountiful bosoms. Well, you just need a little romance novel in the morning. Little bodice ripper, if you will. Leading medical associations have been skeptical of this approach. No shit. Calling it political and not based in science. That's right. It's not. These ideologies have been around for a long time, and they're always rooted in religion, said Dr. Eve Feinberg, a medical director of fertility and reproductive medicine at Northwestern University. It's not actual medicine. They did remove it, didn't they, Jim, in Florida, some counties. I think I heard that. Still, Jay Rance isn't here, but I think she said something about that. Still, there are opportunities for bipartisanship on these issues, which bring together unlikely coalitions to push for better family policies or more funding for infertility issues. While Dr. Feinberg took issue with Ms. Waters' explanation of infertility challenges as far too simplistic, she agrees with some of her recommendations. More federal funding for infertility and reproductive health issues is a wonderful idea, Dr. Feinberg said, adding that women's health has been underfunded for so long. Okay, see, that's great. And I can see where this would bring together unlikely coalitions. But what I hope the medical side of that unlikely coalition does is understand the kind of not eugenics per se, or just kind of like the racism and other terms that reflect an administration that is hell bent on preference of one race. And they're going to be careful about the way they do it, I think. Maybe not. So I hope these fucking medical people are on their shit when it comes to what this administration's goals actually are and whether or not they truly do help women and children and families. So I don't know. I would have to see more, and I hope they're on it. Don't take it for granted. An official speaking on behalf of the department said its maternal and reproductive health programs would continue. Under Dump's executive order to establish the Maha Commission, Secretary Kennedy is determined to find the root causes of chronic disease epidemic. Okay, whatever. How's he going to do that without regulations? How's he going to do that without regulations? I don't get it. I still haven't heard the answer to that question, and I've been asking it for over a year. And the brainworms say, Maha, Maha, Maha. Or scientists. Yeah. Right. Beyond the issue of fertility, the White House has received a wide range of policy recommendations, or scientific, designed to incentivize people to get married and have more children. There they are. In an attempt to influence highly educated couples, Mr. Stone proposed that the government impose a quota for married applicants or applicants with children across all of its fellowship programs, including the Fulbright Fellowship. The recipients are largely recent college graduates, many of whom are single and travel abroad alone. What the government is doing with these programs is conferring status. That being the case, it's bad for the government to blindly confer status on people for their singleness. Some within, just because I can't find love, that doesn't mean I should pay more taxes. Does it? Some within the administration and on Capitol Hill are interested in more sweeping legislative ideas for reversing declining birth rates. Several lawmakers are exploring legislation to offer new parents a baby bonus, a one-time payment of a few $1,000s to the mother of the child. What about single moms? Because when I had my baby, I was completely single. Like, there is no father on her birth certificate. I was 100% single at the time of my baby. Would I get the money, or does that not count because I'm not a family? Because there's no D. There's no D in my life. So I know I haven't looked at the measles outbreaks, Jim, but I imagine they're not great. Let's see. Oh, or the baby bonus could also take the form of a young child or newborn supplement to the existing child tax credit. But I thought they were against that. I'm very confused. Dump himself weighed in on the issue at the CPAC in 2023. We will support baby booms and we will support baby bonuses for a new baby boom. I want a baby boom. Mr. Dump wants a baby boom. Don't worry, everybody. The president already took care of this. He already told Pete he's fine. Don't worry. Pete's not in danger of leaving the administration. Yeah. So, well, TBD. I guess we'll see what this report and all these recommendations include. Hey, didn't he miss a deadline to propose martial law or something? Or I guess he could do that anytime, right? Yeah, if they stopped killing people, we would have more babies. We'd have more people. Texas Paul said the measles outbreak has made it to his area. Oh, hi, Paul J. How are you, darling? Oh, that's too bad. God, that's making me sick to my stomach. And it's, of course, children who are the most vulnerable. If I can't just lurk, I must get ready. Oh, love it. Love it. Measles in your area too? Oh, no. God damn it. This makes me so angry. We have the dumbest. There's pig's breath, poop hands, poop hands, pig's breath. Captain Pig's Breath, Captain Poop Hands. Alive another day. Hell yeah, baby. Hell yeah. That's it. That's the beginning, the middle, and the fucking end. You know what I'm saying? It is. Maggie Haberman, Defense Secretary Pete Pig's Breath, also known as Poop Hands, shared detailed information about forthcoming strikes in Yemen with his poop fingers on March 15th in a private Signal group chat that included his wife, his brother, both of whom actually work at the fucking Department of Defense. I don't know about his wife, but his brother does. And his personal lawyer, according to 4 people with knowledge of the chat. Some of those people said that the information Mr. Hegseth shared on the Signal chat included the flight schedules. Well, now, okay, so I just have a question. Who leaked it? I want to know who leaked it. Mr. Hegseth shared on the Signal chat included the flight schedules for the FA-18 Hornets targeting the Houthis in Yemen. Essentially, the same attack plans that he shared on a separate Signal chat the same day that mistakenly included the editor of The Atlantic. Oh, so this is the same day. Mr. Hegseth's wife, Jennifer, a former Fox News producer, is not she is not a Defense Department employee, but she has traveled with him overseas and drawn criticism for accompanying her husband to sensitive meetings with foreign leaders, and it's gross. Now, Parlatore. Oh my God, it's all the same people. It's all the same people. Blah. Well, the good news is when we round them all up, because they're horrible, it'll all be the same people. Pig's Breath brother Phil and Tim Parlatore, who continues to serve as his personal lawyer, both have jobs in the Pentagon. How is that possible? But it is not clear why either would need to know about upcoming military strikes aimed at the Houthis in Yemen. The previously unreported existence of a second Signal chat in which Mr. Hegseth shared highly sensitive military information is the latest in a series of developments that have put his management and judgment under scrutiny. Do you think? Unlike the chat in which The Atlantic was mistakenly included, the newly revealed one was created by Mr. Pig's Breath. It included his wife and about a dozen other people from his personal and professional circle in January, before his confirmation as Defense Secretary, and was named Defense Team Huddle. The people familiar with the chat said he used his private phone rather than his government one to access the Signal chat. The continued inclusion following Mr. Pig's Breath confirmation of his wife, brother, and personal lawyer, none of whom had any apparent reason to be briefed on operational details of a military operation as it was getting underway, is sure to raise further questions about his adherence to security protocols. He doesn't have any adherence to security protocols, you stupid cunts. My God. That's the point. What? The chat revealed by The Atlantic in March was created by Dump's national security advisor, Mike Waltz, so that the most senior national security officials across the executive branch, such as the vice president, the director of national intelligence, and Mr. Pig's Breath, could coordinate among themselves and their deputies ahead of the U.S. attacks. Mr. Waltz took responsibility for inadvertently adding Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor of The Atlantic, to the chat. He called it the Houthi PC Small Group to reflect the presence of members of the administration's Principals Committee, who come together to discuss the most sensitive and important national security issues. Yeah, I can tell, Gal says, I can tell you as a military spouse, this is very, very, very bad. And military officers are not ignoring this, and it is not unnoticed by them and leadership. I think that is great. Bye for reals now. Peace, love. Love you, girl. Let's see. Mr. Pigsbreath. Okay, okay. Mr. Pigsbreath created the separate signal group initially as a forum for discussing routine administrative or scheduling information, two of the people familiar with the chat said. The people said Mr. Hegseth typically did not use the chat to discuss sensitive military operations and said it did not include other cabinet-level officials. Mr. Pigsbreath shared information about the Yemen strikes in the defense team huddle chat at roughly the same time he was putting the same details in the other signal chat group that included senior U.S. officials and the Atlantic, the people familiar, blah. The Yemen strikes, designed to punish Houthi fighters for attacking international cargo ships passing through the Red Sea, and really was just a boondoggle if you paid attention to the other signal chat. I don't know why you haven't. How did you not put that one in the fucking... Come on, where's that piece of detail, Maggie? All right. The Yemen strikes, designed to punish Houthi fighters for were among the first big military strikes of Mr. Pigsbreath's tenure. After the Atlantic disclosed that Mr. Pigsbreath had used Mr. Waltz's signal group to communicate details of the strikes as they were being launched, the Trump administration said he had not shared war plans, quote unquote, or any classified information, an assertion that was viewed with tremendous skepticism by national security experts. In the case of Mr. Pigsbreath's signal group, a U.S. official declined to comment on whether Mr. Pigsbreath shared detailed targeting information, but maintained that there was no national security breach. Come on, nothing to see here. The truth is that there is an informal group chat that started before confirmation of his closest advisors, the official said. Nothing classified was ever discussed on that chat. Sean Parnell, the chief Pentagon spokesman, did not respond to several requests for comment before this article was published. Wait, who has to pay $7? My mother-in-law spent $600,000 and the contract says that 90% will be returned when she leaves. She doesn't get any interest on it in the meantime. $7,000 a month. Oh man, where would you even get? I don't even know what that looks like. Gal's post disappeared on your phone. Ooh, interesting. Okay. Okay. That's gross. Ugh. The defense team huddle signal chat until recently included about a dozen of Mr. Pigsbreath top aides, including Joe Casper, Mr. Pigsbreath chief of staff, and Mr. Parnell. That's the spokesman for the Department of Defense. He's an idiot, by the way. If you've ever seen a Department of Defense briefing, OPSEC. Dun, 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 dun. That's okay. I should probably get rid of it on the big screen. I didn't think about that. Sorry. The chat also okay, I'll just read like this. The chat also included. Come on, why are you cutting out power-wise? I don't want this to be broken. Okay. The chat also included two senior advisors to Mr. Pigsbreath, Dan Caldwell and Darren Selnick, who were accused of leaking unauthorized information last week and were fired. Oh, the chat also, I'm going to read that again. The chat also included two who were accused of leaking unauthorized information last week and were fired. Well, guess who told them about this one, darling? Mr. Caldwell and Mr. Selnick were among three former top Pentagon officials who proclaimed their innocence in a public statement on Saturday. And where? Oh, in response to the leak inquiry that led to their dismissals. On Sunday, another former Defense Department official, John Oliot, who left the department last week, said in an opinion essay for Politico that the Pentagon is in disarray under Hegseth's leadership and suggested that Mr. Dump should remove him. No, Paul J., you're lovely. You're perfect. When Mr. Goldberg released details of what Mr. Pigsbreath put into the signal chat created by Mr. Waltz regarding the upcoming strikes in Yemen, Dump defended him and said he had done nothing wrong. No matter how many times the legacy media tries to resurrect the same non-story, they can't change the fact that no classified information was shared. Some congressional Democrats said it was fresh proof that Mr. Pigsbreath should be removed. Every day he stays in his job is another day our troops' lives are endangered by his singular stupidity, said Senator Tammy Duckworth, Democrat of Illinois and a combat veteran. Jack Reed of Rhode Island, the senior Democrat on the Armed Services Committee, added, if true, this incident is another troubling example of Pigsbreath reckless disregard for the laws and protocols that every other military service member is required to follow. Indeed. While the signal chat created by Mr. Waltz for senior officials was criticized for sharing details of a military operation on an encrypted but unclassified app, the participants, other than Mr. Goldberg of the Atlantic, who appears to have been added accidentally or not, were senior government officials with reason to track the progress of the attack. But some of the participants in the group chat that created by Mr. Pigsbreath were not officials with any apparent need to be given real-time information on details of the operation. Jennifer Pigsblood has drawn attention for the access her husband has given her. Mr. Hegseth brought her into 2 meetings with foreign military counterparts in February and early March where sensitive information was discussed, a development first reported by the Wall Street Journal. Mr. Parlator, who has been Mr. Hegseth's personal lawyer for the last 8 years. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that kind of interesting? That he's had Tim Parlator as his personal lawyer for 8 years. And Parlator was part of the Trump team too. Isn't that kind of weird? Like, why would some rando TV guy need that level of lawyer? You know what I mean? Doesn't that seem odd? The last time he was in office, Dump got caught sharing classified info with Kid Rock. The op-ed written in Politico is horrifically king worship of Trump, but it's guns out for Hegseth. He's going to be gone by the end of the week. I bet too, gal. Yeah, I pulled up that Politico thing. I haven't read it yet. The look on Pete's kid's face was hilarious. Oh, I didn't even see that. Eric Prince, Christian Crusaders. Eric Prince, Christian Crusader. Oh, that's it. Oh, okay. He's Parlator is connected to that end of the shit. Okay, I get it. That makes sense. Christian Crusaders. Crusading for God. I just skipped many paragraphs in that Politico. I know. Yeah, I debated on reading it or not, but this is a more, although milquetoast reporting by the New York Times. Okay, so in an interview, Mr. Parlator told the New York Times that he would work with Hegseth's office to improve training for the military's uniformed lawyers. Oh, yeah, okay, great, Tim. You're a fucking hack. Mr. Pigsbreath's brother, Phil Pigsbreath, works inside the Pentagon as a liaison to the Department of Homeland Security because he's probably sleeping with Krispy Gnome. Oh, wait, no. And as a senior advisor to the defense secretary. I think that's like a nepo thing that is not a good idea. Like, isn't there rules against nepotism? Are there not rules against nepotism in the military or anywhere in the government? I would think there are. I don't know. Max picked an unqualified drunk, pretty TV announcer to run the biggest department of the government, and it's not working out. Imagine that. DOD spokesperson media liaison. Oh, yeah. He could have been the spokesperson. I mean, really, that's fine. Who cares about that? But yeah, not the fucking secretary. I mean, and I know, talking to Gal, the military is full of professional people, but I would find it very hard to like fucking keep a straight face if I was in that position. Okay. Oh yeah, he was Bernie Kerrick's lawyer. That's right. Oh, we read this such a long time ago. Oh my god. Oh, this is a good one. It's an empty wheel. So Gal has linked right at the bottom an empty wheel post It goes back in the Wayback Machine a little bit and talks about who Parlator is. It's a great column. We probably won't get to it today, but it is a good column. Wow, this thing just is like shitting the bed. Must be a connection, right? Maybe it's a connection issue. Not sure. Okay. Anyway. One person familiar with the chat said pigsbreath aides had warned him a day or two before the Yemen strikes not to discuss. Wait, what? Let me try this again. One person familiar with the chat said Mr. Hegseth's aides had warned him a day or two before the Yemen strikes not to discuss sensitive operational details in his Signal chat, group chat, which, while encrypted, is not considered as secure as government channels typically used for discussing highly sensitive war planning and combat operations. I wonder why this keeps dying. All right, I'll just have to fix it later. It was unclear how Pigsbreath, a veteran and former Fox News host, who before his confirmation in January had never previously served in a high-level government position, pretty much let alone any type of high-level position, right? Not just government, any high-level position, responded to those warnings. Many of those in Hegseth's inner circle during the Pentagon were combat veterans with deep experience in the military, but little firsthand knowledge of how the government operates at the highest levels. Several of these staff members encouraged Mr. Hegseth to move the work-related matters to the Defense Team Huddle chat to his government phone. But Mr. Hegseth never made the transition, according to some of the people familiar with the chat who spoke on condition of anonymity to discuss internal deliberations. The Pentagon's acting Inspector General, boy, I hope they stick around, announced earlier this month that he would review Mr. Hegseth's Yemen strike disclosures on the Signal chat that included top Trump aides and the reporter. The objective of this evaluation is to determine the extent to which the Secretary of Defense and other DoD personnel complied with DoD policies and procedures for the use of a commercial messaging application for official business. The acting Inspector General, Stephen Stebbins, said in a notification letter to Mr. Hegseth. It's not clear whether Mr. Stebbins' review has uncovered the Signal chat that included Mr. Hegseth's wife and other advisors. Mr. Stebbins started the review in response to a joint bipartisan request from Senator Roger Wicker of Mississippi, the Republican chairman of the Armed Services Committee, and Mr. Reed. Beyond the controversy of the Signal chat, Mr. Hegseth's office has been shaken by the sudden firings of Mr. Caldwell, Mr. Selnick, and Colin Carroll, all top advisors to the Defense Secretary. They were escorted from the Pentagon last week after being accused of leaking sensitive information. The dismissals and turmoil around the Inspector General's investigation have raised tensions and prompted talk of more resignations, according to current and former defense officials. Among those considering leaving are Mr. Casper, Mr. Hegseth's chief of staff, who helped lead the leak investigation that resulted in his colleague's dismissal, but has not been implicated in the wrongdoing, according to senior defense officials. Well, then why would he leave? In the wake of the report in The Atlantic disclosing the first Signal chat, Mr. Pigsbreath and other senior administration officials repeatedly denied that any classified information was shared among the participants. Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that. Mr. Pigsbreath told reporters. At a Senate hearing, Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, which is such a joke, echoed Mr. Hegseth's assertion that no classified information was shared, but other former senior defense officials said text describing launch times and the type of aircraft being employed before a strike would be classified information, and that, if leaked to the enemy, could have jeopardized pilots' lives. Yeah, that's right. But here we go again. So again, it was from the same day, which is interesting. I'll go ahead and share a GIF link of this, actually, so you can read it or share it with abandon. Have 3 gift articles left. Yeah. 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 Woo-hoo. All right, here's Pig's Breath. There's the Pig's Breath. There's the Pig's Breath. That's a and rapist. Thank you, Max. And rapist. But I'm bummed. Oh my God. All right. Well, 3 hours 37. Okay, we're pretty good into this. I'm going to stop it there for today. I am so happy to be back. Thank you so much for all of the wonderful support. And I have to say, watching people interact in Discord made me so happy. So thank you so much for being part of this. And I just really appreciate it. I really miss this, and I really miss this. I really miss this. I'll be back. I'm back every day now. Yeah, San Jose was fun. But I will definitely, I'm glad I'm back too. It's nice to be back. So I will definitely, I'll figure out if we can do a space tonight. I love you, Gal. Hug to you too, and the babies, and Mr. Gal. Love him. Anita, thank you. Thank you for coming. Really, thanks for sharing so much of your morning with me. I always appreciate it so much. And thanks for hanging in there with our goofy little stories. So I appreciate you. Bye, Lee and Teresa. Oh, I love you guys. It's good to be home. All right. I'll see you guys later. I'll figure out if we can do a Twitter thing. I don't know. I'll just figure it out. I'm sure I can do something. Let me tell you about the new dino and how much I love it. I would like that to be part of my logo, actually. Let me show you guys what I'm talking about. New features. What? There's new features on Blue Sky? Okay. Let me show you. What? Hold on. Oop. Poopy poop. Okay, here's my... This is the picture. Oh, you can't really see it. I want to see... I want to see this. I want to see it. Dang it. All right. It's not letting me... Oh, man. Okay, well, I'm going to do this. Oh, no, I put it up here. Hold on. Everybody hold on. Don't go anywhere. I love this jester picture. I'm really tapping into... Oh, first of all, this is amazing, by the way. The big list of protests. Gal, thank you for working on that. Oh, here it is. No, I love it. I love it just as it is. I love everything about it. From its painted toenails to its goofy little teeth. I love it so much, and I love the sign. I love it. And Bobo and I painted on the side, or on the suit. We painted Democracy Dino as a name on the suit, but we're going to have to figure out. We're going to go to the art store and figure out what, like, maybe I'll have to spray paint the suit. I might use spray paint. Actually, I kind of want to do that. I kind of want to take the suit and, like, spray paint a bunch of art all over it and, like, the name and stuff. Yeah. I know, right? No, it's perfect. It's so perfect. I love it, Gal. I really do. I love your drawings. I really do. Yeah, that was, and the sign is perfect. Everything's perfect. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah, you got it there. Have a suit. Oh, have a suit people can sign themselves. Oh, that would be fucking awesome. Oh, I love it. I fucking love that. I need to do that. I think this dino thing, I love the dino. It makes everybody smile. It just lightens the mood. It was so nice. It's such a nice, I love it. Yeah, I'll bring Sharpies. That's a great idea. I should get like a different color. Oh my God. The dino is the thing. Democracy Dino is the thing. Yeah. Like a dino cast. Yeah, exactly. Get well soon. Don't get extinct. Also, you get to evade facial recognition. Whoop. Yeah, it's true. I mean, the suits are a good idea. There should be more dinosaurs out there. I think so. Anyway, I love you guys. Thanks again for coming. I will definitely see you later. And definitely tomorrow morning. So
You're down for a space? Cool. Let's figure it out. I'll figure out how to get on and we'll do it. Whoop, whoop. All right. See you on Twitter tonight somehow. And see you here tomorrow morning. Thanks for coming, everyone.